back to their tables, if I could please invite our panelists to join me so we can start to do introductions in just a moment. Thank you so very much for the support and the cooperation. It's incredible to see the amount of friends and family that are in this room. And again, the conversations that were being had about what you heard and learned about this morning. Thank you so much for your support and being here. So good morning, everyone. My name is Nubia Pena, and I'm the Governor's Senior Advisor of Equity and Opportunity, as well as the Director for the Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs. I've been asked to moderate this panel today focused on service in action, Utah leading the way. Deneva Knight, who was your original moderator, is unfortunately sick, so she does send her regards, but I'm very excited to be able to be with you this morning. So, in order for us to get started, I have the pleasure now of inviting our expert panelists to the stage. I'd like to begin with Kirk Aubrey. He serves as President and Chief Executive Officer at Savage and is a member of the company's board. He's been instrumental in leading the company's growth into new markets. Please give him a round of applause. Our next panelist is Clark Ivory. He is the CEO of Ivory Homes, Utah's #1 home builder since 1988. Since purchasing the company in 2000, Clark has built on his father's legacy of principled leadership. Please give him a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, my dear friend and sister, Carrie Holt Larson. She joined the communications department for Larry H. Miller Sports and Entertainment in July 2017 with a promotion to Vice President of Community and Special Events. She oversees the Doing Good department by developing impactful CR programming that leverages the NBA Care social responsibility platform. So if you can please give everyone a round of applause. Okay, so as you can see, these leaders are incredibly accomplished. I do invite you to read their complete bio, but for the sake of time, we do want to get started with our conversation. Now, as you heard this morning during the governor's remarks, this is something service. Service is a critical priority to our administration. And he wanted to make sure that we weren't just championing this, but that we were modeling and operationalizing, which is why Executive Order 2023-08 was so important. 24,000 employees were given 4 hours of administrative time so that they could serve Utah. We wanted to make sure that we were modeling this, that we were championing this, but that we were starting at home. So now we have an opportunity to hear how companies are also taking that step and making this a part of their corporate values. So Kirk, I'd love to start with you. If you could talk a little bit about how, with your organization, how have you prioritized giving back to the community? And why do you believe that it's so important for companies to have a service-oriented component as part of their core values?
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank the governor for hosting this. It's a great event. We're excited to be here. Just a really quick background on Savage. If you don't know, we've been here since 1946. Started by 3 brothers, and that's significant because I think it answers a big part of your question. This was a company started with 1 truck, 3 brothers in 1946 in American Fork, Utah. And the brothers had a true connection. So you heard the governor talk about what happens when there's a breakdown in connection. These brothers could not be separated, and they created that culture. And the other thing that we all heard was that culture doesn't just happen. It actually is something that you have to create. And the brothers created that culture from their relationship as brothers to start. We talk about the fact that the most valuable asset we have on our balance sheet, it doesn't actually show up on our balance sheet, and that's the relationships that are created. And so the brothers started the company with that connection among the 3 of them. They extended that to everyone they dealt with, whether it was team members, customers, suppliers, partners. That formed the foundation of our company. And then after about 50 years of being in business, which is unique in and of itself, they created a vision and legacy for all of the people who followed them. So we live and lead in our company according to what we call our cultural constitution, which is the vision and legacy. And the vision and legacy tells us 3 very simple things as team members in our company: do the right thing, find a better way, and make a difference. And so when you think about those as guiding principles and values for all of our team, and the expectation that that's the way that our company is going to lead, it's hard to imagine that we could connect with our community without doing that, without doing the right thing, finding a better way, and making a difference. So that actually, people don't have to ask, is this something we should be doing? We see a need, and our team really wants to rally to that need. So we think it's an important part of being a fully functioning part of the community, as opposed to just being in a community. We want to be a neighbor in the community and a good neighbor.
So this wasn't just a thing that we do once a year. This is embedded in your vision and strategy.
Yeah, so we call it, and Bill Krim is here from United Way, and he jokes that I call this full contact philanthropy. So full contact philanthropy for us means that we don't just write checks. So that we read in Midvale Elementary, we tutor, we go into the schools, our people do service projects, we go to Camp K, we go to other places. We actually go out and actually put our people to work throughout the country. We have 4,500 team members in 200 locations around the world, and everywhere we operate, we try to have that same philosophy.
Thank you so very much, Kirk, for that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that human impact and the stories in just a moment. But Carrie, I'm actually going to turn to you. I've had the incredible pleasure of participating and collaborating with you on lots of projects. Tell us how your organization is giving back to the community and how it's a priority.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I feel like I'm on my home court here, a little bit of an advantage, I think. If any of you have ever had a chance to hear from or meet Ryan and Ashley, I think that you know how much they love Utah, how much they love the community, how much they embrace that. I'm fortunate. I've been with the organization a little over 10 years now, and so that was something that started under the Millers, to be honest, and doing good, and I was very fortunate to be part of that. And then over the last 2.5 seasons, I guess it's been now, we have become community obsessed. That is one of our core values, and it's not just for our department and community. It's something that we all embrace. Every Utah Jazz employee, every employee here at Delta Center, we all are community obsessed. And what that means to us is that we're stewards. This is our responsibility. We get to use this big, beautiful brand that we have of the Jazz to do great things in the community, to be stewards in our spaces, and to be able to share that and hopefully give people a chance to have experiences, bring community together. That's one of our priorities as well. I love the message always. They're always talking about how rad Utah is, and that's something that my department and all of our Jazz employees get to exemplify and represent on a regular basis every day. If it's sometimes it's small impact, sometimes we're doing something with little nonprofit groups, sometimes we're bringing hundreds or thousands of people right into our home court here. So it's just an opportunity for us to really show how much we love Utah and how we take responsibility, and it's a priority for us to bring our communities together.
So here, I love that you're talking about brand strategy. You know, Kirk is mentioning the vision and the strategy, the priority. Clark, this is now your chance to showcase how Ivory Homes is doing it. So tell us a little bit about your organization's priority.
Well, we haven't always been really plugged into serving in the community, to be honest. First, though, let me just say Abby and the governor, what great examples. How rare is it to have a governor and first lady that make, volunteering and service such a priority? Let's give them a big hand, And my wife has had the opportunity to work with Abby on several things, and she is just a go-getter. I'm sure the governor's having a hard time keeping up with her. But let me go back to what I was saying. I think every company goes through sort of an evolution. And initially, you're trying to survive. You're just trying to establish yourself. And I went to work for my dad, who'd had some really great times, but actually when I went to work for him, it was a very challenging down market. This is right after interest rates had been in the mid-teens, and he was just trying to pay back every bank debt he had and just get above water. And so my mentality was similar. Let's just put our heads down. We got to go do this for our employees, for our whole team. Making payroll every time wasn't easy. And so that was our focus. And you have to realize every company is at a different stage, and we should have different expectations for them. For us at the time, I can remember frequently we'd be asked to participate in things, and I just say no. We've got to focus on, righting the ship. We've got to make sure we're solvent. We've got to make sure we get things going. And that was a very difficult time in the 90s for us. And when I came out of school, I basically said, we've got to pay down our debt. We've got to get healthy. And that was the focus. But then when 2000 hit, I finished the acquisition of the company from my dad. And we were starting to really feel like we were above water. And I got hit up, and I felt like it would not have been right if I'd said no one more time. And I still remember Scott Anderson and Cam Gardner coming to my office and saying, we need to get the next generation of leaders more involved and participating in doing great things in our community. And at the time, they were sort of representing the chamber, and I said, no, I don't want to be one of those guys that goes to these events where you're doing ribbon cuttings and wearing the white jackets or whatever else. I'm out. But they said, no, we're going to do a lot more than that. We're going to really make a difference in policy. We're going to have some great leaders that are going to come together. And truthfully, they started something, I think, then that was really impactful. And Lane Beatty at the time they recruited, who'd been the Senate president, to get involved. And all of a sudden, a whole group of my friends started to come together and really pitched in, and it made a difference. And by 2003, we saw so many opportunities to give that we actually decided as a company, and this is one of the benefits of being a private company, which all three of us represent private companies, but we, from that time, have actually given 27.5% of all of our earnings back to the community in one form or another. So that could be a good challenge for your board.
Yeah, I'll go right back with that. That's good.
But you know, we have a smaller group of shareholders. There's just a couple of us, Christine and me, and so that's really been our focus, and things have sort of taken off. But you know what's really amazing in our state is the way everyone comes together. When COVID hit, immediately we had a group of business leaders that got together with a group of government leaders, our legislative leadership, our governor, the Gardner Institute, our universities, and our companies that were really concerned about where we were going to go as a state got together. And you know what? We made the balanced right decisions in favor of both healthcare and the economy. And we came together in such a remarkable way. One of the things we did during that period of time that our company really got involved in was what we called Hope Corps. And I know the governor and you know, one of our senators is also pushing forward an amazing volunteer effort right now. But we got hundreds of young people that went out and helped small businesses. And you know, because of that, and because of our involvement with a lot of nonprofits who do such good work, we were able to see that Utah businesses had more PPP loans than any other state in the country. And you know how vital that is? Sure, companies like ours have great CPAs and attorneys. They know how to instantly figure out that stuff. But it's the little guys that don't always have that opportunity. And we came together and helped all the little guys figure that out. And these were students at our universities that were going in and showing them how to put together their PPP loans. And it made a huge impact on keeping those businesses solvent during the beginning, you know, times of COVID, which was so stressful on those businesses and for all of us, to be honest. So I just think it's amazing the way this community comes together, and it's because we have great leadership at every level, and our company has been very engaged with those sorts of efforts because we see that it makes a difference. And now we're at a stage in our progression where we can give back.
Thank you so much, Clark. And you know, yes, that does deserve an applause. Thank you. And you know, I will just really quickly say, I appreciate the tone of friendly competition, and feel free to challenge anyone else in the room, right? To practice and to outserve you. That is wonderful. But I'd also like to note that because of your Hope Corps program, We brought on 3 students from that program, and one of them has been full-time with us for the last 3 years, and they're exceptional students. And just even like our panel this morning, it's our emerging leaders that really are the ones we're going to pass the torch to. And so thank you for highlighting that and investing. And speaking of investments, Kirk, I'd really love for you to share some specific examples of your company's community-focused initiatives that have positively impacted the communities where you operate. And I'd love the tangible changes. What did you see in those service investments?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think our longest standing and probably strongest relationship is with United Way, Salt Lake. And my predecessor had been deeply involved and engaged me to be involved. And I can tell you that going back to 1982, in Flint, Michigan, I was a General Motors employee and signed up for my deduction on my payroll check and never saw any benefit of anything that went. And so I wasn't all that excited about being involved in United Way. And then I learned more about what United Way does in this community. If you don't know, it's been pretty spectacular. And so the focus on our company focusing on channeling and funneling those resources to a place that can make a difference for our neighbors in need has been a really significant thing. So we've had 21 straight years, Bill, 21 straight years of 100% participation in our campaign, which I'm very proud of. I think our team has really done a great job of doing that. We love the fact that we look at what we tend to think of as kind of return on connection, right? It's how do you look at where you're seeing improvements as opposed to just money that goes out the door and you don't see those impacts. So through the Promise Partnership, we look at outcomes. We look at what we see in terms of graduation and reading levels and all kinds of things. We're tracking those numbers all the time. And as a member of the board, formerly of United Way and now of Utah's Promise, those are things we look at a lot. We're also, we have a partnership with Hillcrest High School. There's nobody from Hillcrest here, is there? Get in trouble for that one. But it's called the Shine program, Shine Initiative, and it's a partnership between Savage, Hillcrest, and United Way Salt Lake. And it's a $500,000 commitment over 5 years where we're providing basic needs for those kids who come in and can get access to food. They can get laundry facilities, shower facilities, things that will prepare them to be able to learn. And at the same time, that partnership also allows us to provide pathways for careers in transportation. So we're looking at this cradle to career idea of providing opportunities, creating a situation where people can actually learn and can grow, and then actually giving them those kinds of pathways where we're giving them tangible ways to do that.
I recently actually had an opportunity to tour Hillcrest. And if you have not had the chance, please partner with United Way to visit their Promise Partnership schools. It is incredible to see the gaps that are filled because of these levels of investment. So thank you for what you're doing there. All right, Carrie, similar question as Kirk. What specific examples can you share about how your initiatives are positively impacting the communities? As we're seeing, it's really the stories of the people, how their lives are changed, how the gaps are filled. What is your team doing?
I think that one of the things we're most proud of, I think, is our Utah Jazz scholarships. And if that's something that you follow along with, 114 full scholarships have been given to students from diverse communities throughout our state. They're invested in 6 different universities, and it's been an amazing opportunity to see their journey, to see the things. I actually even got a text from one of our scholars just over the holidays. She'd been accepted into like the upper division program for her major. So that was like a huge significant moment in her lives, and we're getting to share in that. It's just been an amazing journey to see the growth, and it's generational changing. This is going to change their lives and their families' lives. And it's been awesome because they work so hard, and we've been able to see their enthusiasm, see their energy. They've been able to mentor and be great examples to the other scholars. Once they kind of join this program, we become sort of a scholar family, and we host them at events. We do preparatory things with them. Earlier this year, we had an amazing opportunity to kind of do a prep before the school year started, and we did a career fair with a variety of our jazz partners who brought representatives from a variety of departments and different jobs, just to be able to give them a chance to see, here are the different things and opportunities that are out there for you. We couldn't have done this without our jazz partners. So we're so grateful and appreciative that this is something that's been really fully embraced at all levels in the jazz family. We have employees who are helping to mentor these students as well. Some of them in specific areas that they're interested in, and some just are there just to encourage them, cheer them on. That's really a lot of what I think these mentors have been able to do, and our employees, is they just need a cheerleader. They need someone who is checking in on them. Of course, one of the biggest challenges for these students has been mental health over the last couple of years, and monitoring that and helping them adjust to this school schedule, the rigors of college, the challenges that come with that, and adjusting their school schedules accordingly. So it's been an amazing just experience from top to bottom of employees, our leadership team being able to interact with these students, seeing them on their journey, and again, just seeing how hard they're working and how much so many of them are doing this for their families. The stories that they tell us about where they've come from, and this opportunity, and so many of them are doing this because they love and appreciate so much the sacrifice of their parents. And we hear there's so many interested in social services because they recognize that they are going to make a difference in the future for people from their community as well, and for their families. So it's just been an incredible journey, and to be able to be a part of that scholarship program. And then of course, partnerships. I mean, you mentioned United Way. We have incredible partners in this community. I will say that Show Up has been one of our favorite partners the last couple of seasons, and just so grateful when that got brought to our attention. These were things that we were already loved being a part of. We loved being a part of the unified sport program, and to see how that has grown has been so much fun. It's just been amazing. Of course, foster care, we've just been, we've had players who've been specifically interested in foster care, so that was a perfect match as well. And then of course, education and the teachers and being able to support that. So at all levels, we're just really grateful to be a part of the partnerships. We're not experts really in a lot of these things. We just want to partner with people who are doing great work. And then again, we use our jazz brand to help amplify, to help celebrate. Sometimes we just try to bring fun. We bring jazz bear, and that usually just, that just takes it up a notch wherever we go. So we're just grateful to be part of the community where we can just help amplify the things that are already happening that are great in the community.
And Carrie, I know that you just talked about our students a lot, but the parents are critical. And during your career fair, you brought the parents in to dispel a couple misconceptions. Why are parents so critical in your initiatives?
Just because of the relationship and the kids, obviously most of the time when you have a question or you're considering your future, you go to your parents and you want their support. An example of that was internships. We were trying to provide internship opportunities for the kids during the summer if they weren't going to be in summer school. And one of the things we realized is the parents didn't want them to not be like working and earning money. They didn't realize our internships that we were arranging paid internships for them. So again, it was just a communication to make sure and assure the parents that yes, these kids were getting opportunities and they were paid, so that they weren't going to be missing out on an opportunity to earn money or to kind of help support their families the way that they have been. So again, it takes a village, it takes a family. And we just want to make sure that all of the students have the support and that the parents understand that they're a part of this, and we want them to be a part of this process with their students as well.
Thanks so much, Carrie. And mentioning the Jazz Bear and the partnerships that we've had with MLK Day coming up next week, we get to partner again with you, and we're bringing children from various backgrounds, children in foster care, those that have been formerly incarcerated, children from low-income families, children from reservations. So again, the partnerships that the Jazz use their brand to make sure they open those opportunities has been fabulous. So thank you, Carrie. Okay, now Clark. I love the vulnerability when you started off with your own personal story where you said, you know what, when I started, we actually had to say no. And there are some companies that do not feel prepared to say yes. What can we say to them to get them to start thinking differently about serving in the community, and how in fact this does impact your organizational value?
Well, no question that every company that engages in the community benefits. So when you want to do that. But there needs to be a plan. And I think you need to be very specific about what you choose to say yes to and what you choose to say no to. And so after we got engaged, we decided we would give in 3 areas and no more. And because if you try to do too many things, you get diluted, your focus isn't there, and you're not effective, right? Doesn't matter what you're doing, you've got to be focused. So we said yes to upward mobility through education, affordable housing, which also had the extension of our efforts with homelessness recently, as we've really tried to bring everyone together to help the governor and our mayors get what they need to get done there. and then finally sustainability, which really connects to our business and what we're doing. So those were the 3 areas, and it's very clear that all of our employees understand there are 3 areas where we give back, and then we don't have to deal with a lot of the other requests. If we do it, it's an exception because of a relationship, a friendship. But for the most part, the bigger dollars and the time commitment goes into those 3 areas, and they're very committed. So we've given out 4,100 scholarships so far since 2003, and hundreds of internships and mentorships. In total, maybe 10,000 students have been benefited. But that's been a focus, and we don't just, send money. We actually like to get to know the students just like you do, and that makes a big difference. Some of them are in construction management at UVU or Salt Lake Community College or Weber State. Others of them are just first-generation scholars that we're really trying to help get a leg up. But we try to get engaged with them so they get to know one another. They meet people, they meet our employees, they get to know what we're about. We also try to teach them how to set goals, how to have a greater vision of what their life can be, and then really follow up with them. And so if I get involved, it's usually in a session where we're talking about building your own success formula for life. And we engage them and we try to get involved. On the housing side, we've partnered with now over 30 universities across the country. It's a national format. In fact, just before I came down here, I was talking with one of the country's largest builders who has seen what we're doing, and they're like, no one is doing what you guys are doing in housing innovation. How can we be involved? And I'm like, we're open. Imitation is the highest form of flattery, and we are going to share our information with anybody. And so if you want to join us, we'll open our door. And that organization is led by my daughter, Abby, and another gal, Jenna Louie. These women have actually built a team of about 80% women that are just doing amazing things across the country. And everyone knows that we are the folks with the best experts in housing innovations. We've looked at 700 companies that are doing innovative things, partnered with the very best minds across the country, and we're bringing good ideas back. But we're also implementing them. We partnered just recently with Crystal Magalette and a call to action to build 850 affordable housing units in the state, and our folks are building those. Crystal put in half the equity, we put in the other half the equity. Now we're really going to make a difference there. On sustainability, I'd just say that we're doing everything we can to make homes more sustainable while not making them less affordable. And that is a balance. I got to tell you, the federal government is pushing us too hard to make things sustainable at the expense of affordability. And it's become very difficult for us. In fact, I had this conversation with a whole big group of policymakers on a federal level. And I said, you guys have got to start balancing out things. Sustainability is beautiful. We got to be green. We got to be effective, all the rest of it. But what about affordability? We're becoming so unaffordable as a country. And did you know that Utah is the 8th least affordable state right now in terms of median income, median housing price? That's crazy. And the governor's doing something about it. Our Senate president's very engaged on this. Our speaker's going to be totally involved. We're going to try to bring solutions to housing affordability in the state. It requires new technology in construction and design. It requires better financing alternatives, and we're doing some things with assistance for first-time home buyers, but we can do a lot better there. And at the end of the day, we've got to have cities come together, and we've got to get everyone in Utah to understand that you can't be so opposed to more affordable housing coming into your neighborhoods. And we're going to push that hard. I know the governor's beating the drum very loud, but this is going to make a big difference. And also in sustainability, affordability is sustainability, but we're doing a few things like we're building 30,000, or we're planting 30,000 trees. And I have to tell you that I've realized that you can ask your employees to do too much, because to dig and plant 30,000 trees is a lot of effort. Last year, we did 27 tree plantings, and we're sort of maxed out. Our employees are sort of telling us, you know, we can't do too many more of these things. So I think you got to keep people focused. You got to do good, but you know, you can ask your employees to do a little too much. They love what we're doing. They love when we're helping with all these scholarships. But when you actually ask them for their back-breaking work, you got to be a little bit careful. Anyway, that's sort of an overview of what we're up to.
We'd be happy to help you plant some trees if you want.
That's awesome. Thank you. And any of you have volunteers, let us know. We'll give you the trees. You plant them for us.
So I just wanted to make one comment about what you said. It's critical to have this be embedded in the organization. So as you think about your organizations, it can't just be top down saying, hey, we want to do this, and everybody should be excited about it. So we created an organization within our organization called Savage Cares. And we put those decisions of specifying where we want to play. We want to play in basic needs and education primarily, which is why we're so excited about Utah's Promise and the work that's being done by United Way Salt Lake, Promise Partnership, and 211. These are really important things for us. And so that whole organizational structure makes a difference, and it makes it owned by the people who are actually doing it, which is, so when you're asking them to plant trees or clean sewers or do whatever we end up doing in our service projects, it's more about decisions they want to make. For me, I would also say the most meaningful thing for me is actually sitting with a child and reading, right? Where you can do these things, you can talk about them conceptually, but when you're sitting face to face with somebody who maybe isn't getting a lot of attention, and to actually read and see the impact that's having when you think about your own life and somebody in your life who's made an impact on you, being that person is really important. I grew up as a poor kid in Windsor, Ontario, and I didn't have that kind of, I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I didn't have the path. So for me, helping to show the pathway that I was able to create, and so many of our team members have been able to create, and having that message go to individuals, that's what full contact philanthropy is about, where it is one-on-one, you're engaged, you're actually taking an interest, and you see somebody go all the way through.
I agree with you 100%. You know, one of our superintendents, his wife works as a first grade teacher in one of our West Valley elementary schools. And she, after she got through this last few years of COVID, I mean, she's exhausted. She just said, half of her students or more are, you know, English as a second language, and the others come from very, very tough socioeconomic issues where there's no time to read to the kids. I mean, these parents are often working round the clock, and so she asked my wife to put together a group to come in and help with the, you know, reading to these kids. And that, what else makes a bigger difference than that? And then we put together a little tutoring after school thing, so that they all have a place to go, and then they get one-on-one tutoring. And it's that kind of thing that we can get more of our students involved with, that I think going forward. Ben McAdams also, he's worked with us on a lot of these issues, and getting the right organization and getting more of our young people involved and our employees, I think, is going to make a huge difference. It's a problem.
Thank you so much, Clark and Kirk. And actually, Kirk, I want to stay with you for just a moment, because as you're telling us, again, the heart stories, right? The babies that are being helped, the initiatives that you're all launching, how do you measure the success? Because you still have stakeholders you need to respond to, and the businesses, the communities that support your business. How are you showing that this, in fact, makes a difference and it's a critical priority to continue moving forward?
Yeah, we're a data-based business. We look at statistics on everything we do. We want to make sure that the investments we're making everywhere have a return. And we talked about this notion of a return on connection, a return on community, where we're actually making an investment. This one's a little bit tougher for us to put a tangible dollar value on, but the good news about the culture, having a culture of connection, is that it's less important that it be a specific dollar and be more about the accountability, that we can look at performance. We can look at, part of our culture is being better tomorrow than we are today. So we want to be able to look at those things. We want to know where we're starting from, and then we want to know where we're going. Ben McAdams and I worked on a project on pre-K together. That was phenomenal, where I will give Bill Krim from United Way one more plug. He said, sometimes in our community and in many communities, we tend to worship the problem. Right? And you sit in rooms with well-intentioned people, and as a business leader coming into philanthropic efforts, sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, right? And so we ought to have that conversation at some point too. How do you bridge that gap between what those of us who do business every day and those of us who are actually in philanthropic efforts to make those two things work well? Ben and I actually looked at the pre-K problem and said, okay, how many kids do we want to put through this? How much is it going to take? How many teachers? How many rooms? Let's look at it. And from my perspective, was looking at it as a business. And so it was looking at it in terms of actually from where we are today with how many kids were in pre-K to where we want to be tomorrow and how we do that.
And that's our workforce, right? It's our future works. Bill, did you know you were on the panel today? No? Okay. We're getting a lot of
He's
love.
hiding behind the pillar over there. I don't know what he's
I just want to say, in terms of accountability, we don't want to build a big organization in our foundation that has to do all the tracking. So typically when we partner with a university, a college, a nonprofit, we hold them responsible for coming forward with the metrics. And I can tell you the universities and colleges that do a great job of coming back and showing us how the students were benefited and what they did as a consequence, and they report that really well, we give them more and more. And those that don't do a very good job, we stop giving as much. And so there is accountability, but it's a big deal for them to be able to show us the end result. And typically we'll get a report from a student, you know, at a college or higher ed level, so we know sort of the way it's impacting them. And so all of that I think is really important. We've got to have the nonprofits, all of you here, you've got to do a great job of going to philanthropists and foundations and businesses and show that there's really a measurable impact. It's not our responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility, and then we can give more.
Yeah, and you made a really important point about focus, right? Which is, you know, now being out in the community where our company, your company, other companies are known for being engaged, we become sort of a target-rich environment, right? It's lots of people with lots of valid needs, lots of things they want to get done, and we have to make decisions about what we say yes to and what we say no to, exactly what you started out talking about. There is a real need in our community for focused attention and resources in areas where we can make a difference. And unfortunately, sometimes what we see from the business side is lots of very well-intentioned people doing lots of really neat things that aren't very well integrated, and so they may not have as much impact as you'd want them to be. So we'd like to see even more of that. That's why I'm as excited about Utah's Promise as I am, because it's an alignment and integration of some of Utah's leading philanthropists and a public-private partnership, which we talked about earlier. And the key is, let's make those things integrated. Let's make them aligned. Let's focus energy and resources on achievable outcomes that we can see.
I love that. Thank you so very much, Clark and Clerk. Again, Carrie, I want to turn to you for just a moment because we talked about how important metrics are and making sure we're reporting out to our stakeholders. But let's talk about internal culture and how this is impacting employees. How have you seen that serving in the community has created a positive impact on the employees, their morale, their job satisfaction? How are you seeing that change?
Yeah, and for us, again, as part of being community obsessed, that's really important to give our employees an opportunity to do that. And it's hard within the season. You know, we look at the Jazz schedule and you're looking at 42 games and how they fall into, and it's February, we're going to be back to back to back to back and things like that. And so wherever we can find opportunities. So this last year we created what we called the Summer of Service, and wanted to make sure that we had opportunities for employees to take a break a little bit, but also to be able to work together and serve. And the great thing about this was that we had people signing up. We didn't do this by department. We made opportunities available every month, and we would try to focus it on a Friday where people were less committed to meetings and things like that, had a little more flexibility. And it was just really fun to have different people from other departments working together who had never worked together perhaps on a project, had never really interacted as much. So every Friday they would get together and have this opportunity, which we called the Summer of Service, and it's sort of where our time was quiet. And we had such great feedback from people. And the best part was, again, just seeing them interact with each other, seeing that they were establishing new relationships, which also helped in a work environment, right? They know each other better. Oh, I know who to go to. I worked with blah, 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 blah when we were at Wasatch Community Gardens, or when we were at the food bank, or when we were some of the other projects that we did. And again, that we were also we took suggestions from our employees as well. What partners, what organizations are they aware of? Is there a need out there? Are there community projects that they're aware of that we can do? And that was really fun. I think, again, impact is hard. We just interviewed recently for a position in our department, and the question that most good candidates ask is, how do you measure impact? How do we know if we're doing a good job? And again, that's a hard, sometimes measurable number. And an example I'd like to use is when we hosted just recently, First Lady Abby Cox and Ashley Smith were working together on a Show Up for Service initiative throughout the month of October, encouraging high schools to get together as teams or as groups to do service in their community. And then they submitted that, and we brought some high schools to celebrate that. And we had probably several of those high school kids where 90%, 95% of those kids had never been to a jazz game, had never been to the Delta Center. So those are the kind of impact things that don't measure big on an optic. But when you see that, when you bring them here, when you're seeing them have this experience together with their friends for the first time, it's incredible. And so again, we look at impact in a lot of ways, and of course it's important to measure. We give away 2,600 tickets a year to nonprofits and community groups and donations, and that is really important to measure. But the thing that we can't always capture in a data point is just this feeling, this experience of people having. And I will say, even like in our new business, a lot of times they want to add community programs into deals and into contracts. And initially, all those companies are like, what are the metrics? What are the measurables? How many eyeballs are going to see that? And it's generally speaking, as soon as those companies have worked with us and as soon as they've had a community program within their contract, in the future, it's just, hey, we want to work with them. We love that so much. They're not even looking at what the eyeballs are. They weren't looking at like what the social media push was. They're just like, we had a great experience with that. Our employees loved engaging with that partner. We loved being part of that community program. And that's a real measure of success to us as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carrie. And family, unfortunately, we are at time. I saw you, Clark. You wanted to answer that one.
I'm good.
And so, but we do have to keep moving. And I do just want to say, family, I think you all agree with me how lucky we are to have these organizations, to have these leaders, to have these executive directors and CEOs, people who care and who have said, we will give back to Utah. And I do encourage you all to please come up afterwards and talk to them, learn a little bit more about how they launched their initiatives. And I just want to say, it's really such a privilege and pleasure to learn not only about your organization, but your heart to serve. And just as a reminder, Governor Cox did sign the executive order to 2023-09. And this is to encourage more companies to be able to receive benefits from the state so that they can make service and volunteerism a priority for their organizations. If you need more information, please reach out to us, but that's also for our online audience. And if we can please give our expert panelists a very loud and very heartwarming round of applause.
Good job.
All right. Turn this on. Can you hear me? I'm Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson. It's an honor to be here. Thanks. I feel like this is not very loud, but can you hear me okay? I have to say how incredibly humbled I am to be part of an administration who, from before it was an administration, had service as its top priority. We heard a little bit this morning how politicians, government leaders are a reflection of the people that we represent. But I think it's also true that the people are a reflection of their politicians. We reflect back to the people of the state that we serve. And what are we reflecting? That is such an important question. And it's something that we have to think about every single day. So I am grateful to be partner with a governor who reflects such wonderful light. And First Lady, thank you for your example and for your service. Several months ago, we announced a new initiative that we were working on, a high school service initiative that would start out as a pilot program, and it would take 5 LEAs, 4 school districts and 1 statewide charter school, and they would experiment. Many high schools throughout the state, probably all the high schools throughout the state, do implement some form of service. They have clubs and organizations, and they do things that are good for the school, for the students, for their communities. But sometimes the students who could benefit the most from the experience of service are the ones who maybe aren't participating the most. And so we want to change that. What we want to do is, from the ground up, we want to infuse our schools with a culture of service, a culture of volunteerism, to provide all the benefits that we've already talked about today, the mental health benefits, the benefits to society, to bridge gaps, to help eradicate the pandemic of loneliness that has had such a terrible effect on society and is harmful to our young people, and help give them the tools that they need for to be the future leaders that they are. There is a 23-year-old journalist. She's a journalist and author, and she's 23. She's a Gen Zer. Her name is Ricky Schlott. I don't know if any of you have heard of her. But I saw a YouTube video where she spoke not too long ago, and it really struck me what she said. She calls Gen Z Zoomers, which I thought was cool. And she's a self-proclaimed mediator between the Zoomers and the Boomers, is what she says. And she says that Gen Z is a post-hope generation. That's what she calls it, which made me very, very sad when I heard that. She says that they've inherited a post-hope world. And a Zoomer herself, she said that many people in her generation are largely disillusioned with the values and institutions that underpin a healthy society. She goes on to say, all things that have traditionally made life worth living, love, community, country, work, faith, family, have been debunked. Stripped of everything, Zoomers desperately grasp for unsatisfying substitutions. Zoomers are adept at tearing things down, but we need to be taught to build back up too, and to identify what's worth preserving. And she says that requires a positive restoration vision, or positive restorative vision, and knowledge of just how profound our inheritance is. Gen Z is silently pining for a restoration of faith in the world around them. And it's time for older generations to reach down and help them regain hope. So that's what we need to do as the older generations now, to help our younger generations understand what we have left for them, what their inheritance is, and help them do that through connecting with each other, through connecting with other people, through connecting especially with people who are different than they are, might have different beliefs, might be of a different generation, and provide service that not only benefits the people around them, but benefits them. And as we've gone around the state to a few different school districts to talk about this, I've had the opportunity to visit with some high school students who are already doing this. And I don't know, maybe these students don't believe that they have inherited a post-hope world. I hope they don't, because I don't think it's true. And if it is, we can fix that. And it will take all of us to fix that. But I personally have a lot of hope in the next generation. And we have some incredible high school students here with us today from Skyline High School. And I want to invite you guys to come up on stage. This is Lucy Worthen, and I swear I hope I get these all right, and Sophie Goddard, and Manette Batia, and Miguel Fregoso. Okay, Miguel, Manette, Sophie, and Lucy, and that was really putting me on the spot because I had that down beforehand. Have a seat, guys, thanks. We're gonna talk about the positive aspects of service, the very tangible, real impacts that service have had on Skyline High School and on these students individually. And I'm just going to go down the row here and have you each take a couple of minutes to describe what you do. There is an incredible program at Skyline. And one of the things that we're doing with our service initiative is the state is not going to tell the schools how to do this. We are going to be laboratories of innovation at the school level, because every school already does some things and we want to help them expand, give them resources to expand, but this is going to be a very school or school district driven effort. But I want to, Lucy, go ahead and why don't you tell us what you have done and how service has impacted you?
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so I'm the director of Community of Caring, which is the service organization. It's a class, it's a club at Skyline. And I feel like one thing, like I've always wanted to serve, I feel like my whole life. But until I got to high school, I didn't really know how to. Like, there's not a lot of just opportunities. Like, I feel like I didn't really know how to. And then I remember just walking into my Community of Caring class that I just signed up for because it seemed fun and I wanted to meet new people. And I walked in there and I signed up for to go to St. Vincent's, which is a dining hall to feed the homeless in Salt Lake City. And I went and I had the most amazing experience. And I really felt like I was like helping people. I felt like I was changing lives. It made me so happy. It made me genuinely feel like I was helping people. And that's just something that I had never had before, but that I always felt like I yearned for. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity and countless other opportunities I've had. I think also the special bonds that I've had with people through St. Vincent's, through other service, there's just something really special about working together for a common goal, people that you've never met before, working together and just to help people, you're immediately bonded to those people that you're working with and that you're working towards helping. And I think it's changed my life because I've learned so early on in high school that I feel most fulfilled and happy when I'm serving people. And that has helped me realize what I want to do in my career. It's helped me it's one of the most important things I've learned in high school is how much I love serving people and how much I want that to be part of my future career. So I think that's so important for high schoolers that may not have just opportunities to serve because they don't know that they love serving because they don't have an opportunity to do it. So I think that's been really important for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy.
That was beautiful. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I wrote down some things because I cannot public talk. I can't. So my name is Sophie Goddard. I am the co-director. I help Lucy out with anything, kind of like a little team. I just want to say, first of all, I'm so lucky to even be here and speak about my experiences with Skyline and especially Community of Caring. I'd also love to thank not only Amy and Rachel, but also Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson. Thank you. So I just want to talk about the opportunity of power service and my experiences. So Community Caring is a service-oriented class that we have at Skyline. In the class, we have hundreds of activities that include service. Some of them are stadium cleanups, teen forum, refugee culture night, St. Vincent's, and more. So one of my favorite activities is to do with St. Vincent's, as well as Lucy. St. Vincent's is a dining hall that is open to people who are experiencing homelessness. They serve hot and fresh food and never let food go to waste. Before we go to St. Vincent's, me and my fellow students, we do an activity beforehand called 400 sandwiches. It's where we meet at the classroom and we make 400 sandwiches in order to give it to St. Vincent's for the people that are experiencing homelessness for lunches and stuff. When I am at St. Vincent's, Amy puts me on a thing called The Line. And The Line is where you serve food to people and you get to talk to them. I love being a line, and it's because I get to speak to these amazing people and I get to hear their stories. And every time I see a person I'm serving at St. Vincent's, they are always so grateful and thankful. And they just always thank you for just being there and serving them. Seeing, meeting, and hearing people's stories is honestly really hard because I'm not used to seeing how raw, how emotional and how like sensitive homelessness is. I just like seeing how grateful they are to even receive hot and fresh meals is honestly heartbreaking to me because I have never experienced that before. And I love going to St. Vincent's because I get to experience service firsthand. I always try to be there for people. I'm always trying to prioritize serving them first. Being in a service class has helped me not only physically, but mentally. It has truly made me a better person. Now I always think, how can I help this person? Or what can I do to make this person's day better? Doing simple acts of service can not only make Utah, but the rest of the world a better place. Holding the door, complimenting someone, or even smiling at someone is such a high power over all the negativity. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity and experience to be in this caring community. And I urge all the students of Utah to take a service class and to serve others in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Manat. Talk right into it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Manat Bhatia. I'm a junior at Skyline High School and on the Community of Caring Board with Sophie, Lucy, and Miguel. I'm on the animal welfare side of it. And when I first came to Skyline as a freshman, I had a bit of a rough year, but I always really wanted to get involved with the whole school, with all the activities that are put on, with the SBOs. And when I found Community of Caring, it was almost like an entire door full of amazing opportunities had opened up for me that I couldn't be more grateful for. One of the first activities that I did was 400 sandwiches, what Sophie was talking about. And honestly, walking into that class, listening to the music, being greeted by the other students that are holding the activity, it just made me feel so included. It was such an inclusive space, and I really just honestly, something inside of me sparked, and it made me feel like, oh, like I can actually make a difference. I can help these people with these 400 sandwiches with honestly like 30 minutes of my life. I can make someone else's better, and it really doesn't take that much time and effort. You can do that, like you can do that good deed. You can make someone's life even just a little bit better. And it doesn't stop with 400 sandwiches. We also have an activity that's really stuck with me called Refugee Cultural Nights, where we go and we learn all about the refugees in Utah. We learn about the refugees in the US. And honestly, we go through the statistics of how many refugees actually get out of the camps and get out of their homes. And it's heartbreaking to hear about their stories, but it's a reality check that I feel like almost everybody needs in order to truly understand where your service is going and what you can do for somebody else. Because listening to those statistics and listening to other people's stories, it might seem super overwhelming or like so much is going on that what can just one person do. But when we come together as a community at Community of Caring, or when we go to those refugee cultural nights as a group, we're not just representing ourselves, but we're making an effort to help other people who need that help for their stories to be learned and for their stories to be heard, honestly. And with refugee cultural nights, I know that very little people get out of refugee camps, but the people that do get out, they are there to tell their stories. And we have this thing called Teen Forum inside the classroom where we get to hear one-on-one experiences with refugees. And one that really stuck with me was a refugee from Syria. Her name was Noor, and she talked all about how she had to leave her country and leave her family and how it was really, really hard for her. And I've never seen the class more silent and more focused on her story. But she also discussed how it's really important to be educated and to get out there and talk to the other refugees that are at the school and know their stories and know their religions, their culture, everything that makes them them. And it's really important for that, not just so that you can make a difference in somebody's life, but that you can help that person's life, or so that you can help that person also feel included and have an inclusive space. Like I felt in 400 sandwiches, I just felt like I belonged there, and I really would love to make somebody else feel like that. And Noor helped me see that, like being educated on people's religions, their culture, what they do, where they come from, it's just so important. And honestly, it doesn't stop there. I feel like I could just keep talking on and on about how amazing Community of Caring is and all the opportunities that I've seen, all the people that I've seen helped. Honestly, I feel like doing service is a chain reaction where if I do service, if I go out, I tell my friends about it, tell my family about it, and I get them to also do it. And from there, honestly, it just expands. And I've seen it happen with my own brother. I've seen it happen with my friends. I've seen it happen with other people who come to my activities and how much they love it and how much they want to tell their friends about it. And honestly, that just makes me so grateful that I can be serving so many people and I can be making a difference in people's lives, but also that I can help others make a difference in other people's lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Manat. Miguel?
All right. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Perfect. My name is Miguel Fregoso. I'm the refugee chair at Skyline High School, and I just want to say before I begin that it is like such an honor to be speaking with the fellow leaders of Utah today. Not only just because that I have a part to be expanding the education for K-12 students, but also be here to be speaking about my how do you say that experiences while being in community of caring. To begin with, some of the things that I do for refugees, I find refugee apartment setups. So I bring a bunch of my students and peers to the apartments that come in, and we team up with Catholic Community Services, move in furniture with the apartments, and then we just set them up all nicely and everything like that. I also host cultural nights, and I also bring the Teen Forum speakers and guests in. A little background about it. My parents grew up in Mexico and they migrated over here to America. And for one reason only, they came here for the American dream. They pretty much wanted me to to further expand my education, to pretty much have the opportunities that they didn't have growing up. With that coming from them coming to Mexico, migrating to America, they also had problems, which was the scarcity of them having resources. They relied on the food bank every week so they could have food. They relied on Catholic Community Services so they could at least know their transportations of modes and how to use the UTA and the tracks. And they also relied on other Americans who also taught them how to use modern day technology in English classes. Without any of this, my parents wouldn't have had modern day English, wouldn't have used modern day technology, and wouldn't have used English. They wouldn't have had any food, and they wouldn't have had, using the modes of transportation back then. And all of this wouldn't have happened without services with other people in America. Without them as well, serving has such an impact on me because what those people did to my parents wouldn't have gotten them to where they are today, where they work full-time jobs, where they work 2 jobs and they work professional jobs. And without them, they wouldn't have had my education. They wouldn't have taught me as well. They wouldn't have taught me that anything is possible. You can do it and everything like that. And so with that, I just serving my community as well. And I'm so grateful to be on the refugee chair because as well, I also in elementary school, I grew up with a bunch of refugees. And so hitting the impact and also hitting the impact with bringing new refugees and welcoming them to Utah. I can also just learn from experience that these people feel so appreciated without any of our volunteerment help, without any of our help, without donating time, money, or knowledge. None of this wouldn't have happened. And with so many of and I just say as well, with what Manat says as well, that it's such a chain reaction because no matter who wants to serve, everyone is always going to be there for each other because in America, everyone's always there for one another. And this pretty much shows as well that service is there's still good people. They're still good in the world and they're still good everywhere. And chivalry is not dead. Yeah.
Thank you, Miguel. So I didn't mention beforehand. It slipped my mind that the name of the program, the class. There's specific classes at Skyline High School that do this service, and it's called Community of Caring. And the program director and instructor is here, Amy. If you want to stand up, Amy's incredible. And so when you hear, I've heard it a couple times here, the students talk about Amy. That's her. You all have described, and we'll just kind of start in. If you want to respond, just kind of jump in. You talked about the importance, the benefit, I guess, of what you've learned in your service experiences, and how important it is for other students to have experiences like you've had, how that could benefit them. Now, as we look at piloting a service initiative, first in school districts, so Granite School District, all of the high schools will start with this next fall. And how do you see students who typically don't participate, how do you expect that you'd be able to like include them and get them to be as excited about service as you are? Do you have any ideas for how we could do that?
Yeah, just like Miguel and Manat said, chain reaction. I think if we get the invitation out and word out, we can get handfuls of students and people to come join and do service activities. I think by having open invitations and open activities and opportunities, we can get handfuls of students to join and do service. And
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think make it fun and make it like the cool, fun thing to do. Like, I think at Skyline, I mean, we can't, like we were talking about this earlier, our sign up sheets for every activity fill up so fast. Like, we have to turn people away because everyone is hearing how cool and fun it is. Our classes are maxed out. Like, it's just everyone wants to do it. So I think creating the culture of this is super fun, like service is fun, I think is really important.
Go ahead, yes.
I just also want to say that I think service and having people join it is like the new normal. It's what would you say, like what the cool people do now and then? I guess that's what you'd say. But yeah, it's just basically the new normal is service and having people join. That is what people do now.
I'd like to get your reaction to that quote that I read earlier. Someone a little bit older than you, a few years older than you, talking about how Gen Z Zoomers believe they've inherited a post-hope world. Do you believe that's true?
No. I feel like
Tell us more. Tell us why.
I feel like because of the technology and because everybody's become like so into their phones or into their screens or inside, especially with COVID, everybody feels like, oh, like we're not going to be able to get back to where we were, or we're not going to be able to make that progress as fast as we did, or pick up where we left off. But I feel like with service becoming the new norm, or service being incorporated in schools like it is now, it's almost like opening up doors and showing all sorts of like many different diverse groups of people that they aren't alone and that there is a place for them. There is somebody looking out for them. And it's almost going to like open, I mean, at least for me and for my classmates, I feel like it's opened our eyes to seeing all the different kinds of people who might be suffering, rather than just like being in your own inclusive circle. We're opening up to like all these different people and like helping many different people. It doesn't have to be just on one scale. Like the reach of service isn't just like in one circle. It goes so far and it can be so impactful, helping people like branch out and get away from their normal, getting away from their comfort zone can just like help them make that impact that we're looking for.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Is there, can any of you talk about a time or a person, a friendship, I guess, a friendship you've made that you would never have made before without the service?
I will start on that. Before then, when I joined Community of Caring, I had no idea who was there. As like my only friend was my sister, but then she graduated, and so I was pretty much alone. And then when I sat on a table, I met my best friend, Sophie Goddard. And the thing about Sophie Goddard is that she's just been the most happiest person that I've ever met in my whole entire life. And she loves to include other people, and she like makes people feel special. And with service as well, with Community of Caring, all she does is just include people, invite people to do more service, and she makes people feel special. And what I really do love about Sophie is that she has such a great heart and such a great personality. And I wish that everyone was friends with Sophie, because otherwise you're missing out. But I'm really thankful for like the whole entire opportunity, because if it wasn't for Amy making that seating chart, I would have never have been close with my good friend Sophie Goddard. And I'm so grateful. And as well, like with so many things that I've said about service and like community and stuff like that, we don't have any modes of transportation, and our only modes of transportation are cars. And so when people say that they can drive, We usually put out random students from freshman year to senior year, and all we do while we get to our service activities is that we talk and we communicate about each other, and we just like get to know other people, which is the amazing thing about community of caring as well. Is like we're also serving while talking to them, and also the car rides that we get from back forth and like to along, and everyone's just like a family in community of caring, and everyone's just like friends with each other, and no matter what, no one will always be like negative towards anybody, which is I think is so great.
Anyone else want to share a friendship they made that they wouldn't have otherwise?
Yeah, let me go ahead. Miguel. My gosh, I don't even know how to, wow. Yeah, none of this, my friendship with Miguel would not have been possible if it wasn't for Amy and Rachel. I have no idea, but they just have a way of making those seating charts, and they just made it perfectly. Walking into that class my first year, I would have never expected to be sitting at a table with all these people, and I would have never expected to have built and grown such a beautiful friendship with my best friend Miguel. It's truly been, it's amazing. And looking back at it now, I am so grateful and yet again thankful to even have a friendship with Miguel and to even be sitting at a table with him. And so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're about out of time, but we're sitting here in a room full of government and community and business leaders. What is one thing, and we're going to go down the line again. We'll start with Manette, though, so that we don't, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot, Manette. What's the one thing you want to tell, or you want everyone in this room to know about your generation and what you need from us for the future?
Oh, you definitely put me on the spot there. Thank you. But one thing that I'd want people to know about our generation, one thing that I've learned in the classroom is that you can become friends with anybody, and you can make a family out of just a couple random juniors, seniors, sophomores, and freshmen that you probably wouldn't have talked to before. And I think it's important to remember that when people come together and they do service together, they're not just like checking off an assignment or putting something on their college applications. They're there to make a bond, make a friendship, make a family, and help other people do the same thing. Help, like in that bond, other people can make a difference and help, honestly, like the less fortunate, or help people that like you don't know much about, help refugees, help people of all different cultures and ethnicities. And while your help individually, you're helping other people, the people that you serve with and the friends you make, it becomes a family rather than just an individual, like little, oh, I'm gonna go help this person, or I'm gonna go serve this person. Like even if you take time out of your own life to go and do that by yourself, you'll see that so many other people are also there. And there's a bond and a connection that's gonna spark that probably wouldn't have been there if we didn't go out and make that initiative or take time to serve other people and keep them in mind as well.
Thank you very much. All right, Lucy, we're going to go to you next.
If I had something to tell you guys, I'd probably just say, like, the one thing that I've noticed that, like, our generation really needs is just more connection with our fellow peers, with you guys, with adult leaders, like, and that's why I think service is so great, because it, like, really fosters those connections with peers, with our teachers, with everyone around us. And so I think also just like you were saying, it's going to be different for every school when you implement this program. I think asking them what would interest you to serve, who do you want to serve, I think that would be really beneficial if you ask the students what they actually want to do and who they are passionate about helping. Because if you build on that, they're gonna want to serve, they're gonna want to be a big part of this program.
Thank you, Lucy. Sophie, we'll go to you next.
I would just say that we want to make a change. We want our voices to be heard. We need those connections. And most importantly, service is what makes our generation, I feel like. I feel like we
by doing service, we are not only helping ourselves, but we are also helping, I feel like, higher generations as well. But most importantly, repeating myself again, is that we just want to make a change. We just want our voices to be heard. I feel like that's that.
Thank you. All right, Miguel, you get the last word.
Perfect. Well, one thing that I will say that you guys have amazingly done is honestly make really good role models, and you guys have honestly have shown that for like so many times. Like the amount of role models that your generation has produced and has put out, it's like amazing. And I'm like really thankful that you guys like that. You know that this is happening, that I can have someone to look up to. Making the connections as well, that like that we will be taking over. Like our generation will be the next generation to be in the hands of America, and that we just need the support that we needed to be there, and that also that we will make a change, and that we are here to make positive impacts on the world, and that we can hopefully change the world for better one day at a time. My ASL teacher tells me every single day and every single class period, be happy and make the world better. And I think that with our generation, I think that's what we can do, and that we are just we can be able to talk to people, we can be able to talk to future leaders, future leaders, but also we can talk about our current leaders. And I will give out one example. When Ben McAdams came over, I remember you specifically, this conversation, this Ben McAdams, former House Representative Ben McAdams, came to Crumble. He ordered cookies from me, and immediately I was just like, "You're Ben McAdams." And he was just like, "Absolutely, you're right. I am Ben McAdams." And so what the best part about what Ben McAdams was is that I got to talk to him for 5 minutes, because he was just like, I was having to do my work as well, but it was an amazing feeling to talk to Ben McAdams and also talk about the amount of things that he's are the things that he has did while he was a former House of Representatives, and as well with so many of with what he's doing right now, and especially with now you being involved with service. And I'm so happy that that he's finally here and I get to talk to him again. But we just want you guys to know that we will make a change, and why you guys can just be there is just to be there to support us. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. Ben Miguel is available for a selfie afterward. Yes. Service provides opportunities for connection, and connection is the glue. So service is the glue that holds our communities together, holds our state together, and gives us hope for the future. And let's give it up for the next generation. It's lunchtime. Go to lunch. I don't know where it is.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Alan Casey. I'm honored to be here as the co-chair of More Perfect along with John Bridgeland. And I want to start by just thanking Governor Cox and First Lady Abby Cox and your entire team for the leadership that you're showing in pulling this symposium together. It's already been such an impactful and inspiring day. And for the bold vision you outlined for your service plan. We need more leaders in public life like you and Abby. So can we hear it again for our Governor and First Lady? And since this is a service symposium, can we also take a moment to thank all the people behind the scenes, including the folks who just helped us get lunch, for their work to make this a great event? Thank you. I've been in the service movement for more than 35 years since I founded City Year with my best friend, Michael Brown. And we were honored, and City Year was the model for AmeriCorps. We were so honored that your Senator, Mitt Romney, joined our board in the early days and has remained a champion and a really great friend. Again, exemplifying the spirit of service right here from Utah. I'm particularly excited about this moment in the national service movement because we've never seen this level of personal leadership by governors in the 35 years I've been involved. Of course, Governor Cox, but also Governor Moore, and so great that Secretary Paul Montero is here with us. We're going to hear from him soon. Governor Newsom, and so many other governors, as you will see in the report that Bridge shared that's at your tables. You know, governors, for the first time, really, personally are leading and setting the stage. And if more governors and states lead with innovative service programs, like the Service Fellowship Program Governor Cox laid out today, I believe we can take this movement to scale, and we need to. As you all here in Utah know, the ethic of service, and as we heard from that fabulous panel, thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and you wonderful students from Caring Community, and your teacher, Ann, who's a great matchmaker. Thank you. The spirit of service is strong. Everyone has a desire to put aside the vitriol, find common ground, roll up our sleeves, and solve problems. That feeling is palpable. We know service works, and our dream is that one day, the most common question people will ask each other when they meet won't be, well, where do you live? Or what do you do? Or where did you go to school? It will be, where did you do your service year? And right away, people will bond, no matter their background, sharing stories about their shared service experience in serving their community and our country and making a difference. Imagine how different our country will be when we achieve that day. And I think today is a great step forward on that path. I'm so honored to be here to introduce our keynote speaker and my good friend, Joe Heck, who has lived an exemplary life of service. If I told you someone started as a volunteer firefighter and EMT, then received their medical degree, and completed his emergency medicine residency at Albert Einstein Medical Center, and is a fellow of both the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians and the American College of Emergency Physicians, you would agree that's quite a life of service. Or if I told you someone served in the Nevada State Senate and then went on to serve 3 terms in the United States Congress as a member of the Armed Services Committee, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and the Education and Workforce Committee, you'd say, that's quite a life of service. Or if I told you someone has served as a member of the United States Army Reserve since 1991, is now a Major General, serves as the Deputy Surgeon General for Mobilization, Readiness, and Reserve Affairs, has completed multiple tours of duty, in fact, just finished one last Friday, and has received many military awards, including the Distinguished Service Medal, the Defense Superior Service Medal, and the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, among others. I'm sure you'd agree, well, that is quite a life of service. Well, I'm humbled to say that our keynote speaker, Joe Heck, is each of those people: doctor, former congressman, and Major General in the Army Reserve. In fact, if you Google life of service, a picture of Joe and a link to his bio will pop up. Try it. I had the great pleasure and privilege of getting to know Joe and becoming good friends when we served together on the Congressionally Chartered Commission on Military, National, and Public Service. Joe was elected our chairman, and boy, did we make the right choice. He did a masterful job leading our very diverse group of 11 commissioners, as we were charged to conduct a review of the military selective service system and make recommendations on how to increase military, national, and public service in our country. Joe right away set a strong vision, and the goal of our commission was very simple and profound. Every American inspired and eager to serve, just like we've been talking about today here. Joe was an outstanding servant leader as chair and made sure every single commissioner felt valued and that each person's ideas and opinions were thoughtfully considered. In fact, he almost always waited until everyone else had to share their views before he would weigh in with his own. Because of the tone Joe set, even though we came from very different backgrounds and political affiliations, we didn't stay set in our point of view. In fact, we grew each other's ideas, and I think that made our recommendations all the more stronger. We held more than 28 public meetings and hearings all across this country, and I love seeing former Congressional Committee Chairman Joe Heck wield the gavel in those hearings and keep them focused and on track. It was clear why he was such an effective member of Congress. I don't believe we could have a better keynote speaker for this really important symposium today than Joe Heck. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to my good friend, Dr. Congressman Major General Joe Heck.
Thank you so much. You know, almost sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, right? A doctor, a general, and a congressman walk into a bar, and it's all Joe Heck. Thank you, Alan, for that very kind introduction. Look, since I was referred to as Major General and I'm here and my military rank and title have been used, I've got to do a little housekeeping. Upfront disclaimer, the opinions I'm about to express are those of me and me alone and do not necessarily reflect those of the Department of the Army or the Department of Defense. So now that I got that out of the way, I can speak my mind. So as Alan mentioned, I had the distinct honor to chair the National Commission on Military, National, and Public Service and was truly blessed to serve beside 10 other commissioners, all talented and dedicated leaders from across the service community, Alan included. Now, Alan is a titan in the service arena, but his humility actually masks his many accomplishments. Founder and CEO of City Year, serving as vice chair of President George H.W. Bush's Commission on National and Community Service, working with President Bill Clinton to establish AmeriCorps, and working with the late Senator Ted Kennedy to pass the Serve America Act, which resulted in the largest increase in national service authorizations in over 75 years. So, Alan, thank you for your leadership and your friendship. And certainly, my thanks to Governor Cox and his team for convening the summit and extending an invitation for my participation. It's wonderful to be back in the great state of Utah. Some know for 3 years I was the commanding general of the 807th MedCom, which is right up the hill here at Fort Douglas. So glad to be back. I'd also like to add my welcome to all of you for your dedication to working so hard to expanding service opportunities for more Americans. You know, service to others, as we've heard time and time again, has a long tradition here in the state of Utah. And as has already been said, in 2023, the state was again recognized as the leading state for rate of volunteerism as well as volunteer hours per capita. But under the governor's leadership, that is taking on a whole new dimension, looking for additional opportunities to recruit more participants, provide more opportunities to serve, and impact many more lives. From instituting the Spirit of Service Award, recognizing individuals and groups who are making a difference in your communities through acts of service, to the initiatives encouraging state agencies to organize department-wide service projects and giving employees paid admin leave to participate, to linking those corporate economic incentives to a requirement for volunteer service. Governor, you truly embrace the value of service, and thank you for your leadership. You know, throughout the course of American history, Americans have time and again come together in moments of crisis and need to confront our challenges and to move the country forward. As Alexis de Tocqueville, the French political scientist, historian, and author of Democracy in America, traveled our fledgling country 200 years ago, he observed that America was a nation of joiners, distinctive for its rich tradition of individuals participating in civil society and faith organizations with the desire to serve community needs. He remarked, and I quote, "I have seen Americans making great and sincere sacrifices for the common good, and 100 times I have noticed that when needs be, they almost always gave each other faithful support," end quote. Now, I'll tell you, one of the benefits of me working on the National Commission was that I now know who Alexis de Tocqueville is. I was a hard science major going to medical school, not liberal arts, had no idea of any of this. But through serving on the commission and that service opportunity, I had a whole new perspective opened up to me on what it meant to be a part of this incredible republic. Throughout the commission's work, we saw firsthand how America's extraordinary and long-standing spirit of service continues to shape the life of our nation. Americans repeatedly step up in support of each other, offering their sweat and ingenuity when needed, without being asked, and without expectation of anything in return. So much has been accomplished thanks to this spirit of service. And while nearly 24 million Americans participate in some form of national, military, or public service, in a nation of more than 330 million, we have not yet unlocked the full transformational potential of service to address critical national and local needs and reinforce the civic fabric of American society, a fabric that is in desperate need of mending. Fulfilling that potential will require a collective effort to build upon America's spirit of service, to cultivate a widespread culture of service. And it has gratified me to no end today to hear that term culture used in just about every one of the panel discussions. A culture in which service is a common expectation and experience of all Americans, when it's the norm, as Alan mentioned, not the exception, that individuals of all backgrounds both expect and aspire to serve their nation or community, have meaningful opportunities to serve throughout their lifetime, and no one is surprised by the questions, how have you served or how will you serve? Simply put, by creating a culture, a shared ethos, where every American is inspired and eager to serve. That culture begins with comprehensive civic education and service learning, starting in kindergarten, and continues with service year opportunities so ubiquitous that service becomes a rite of passage for every young American, and is then followed by new and revitalized options for adults of any age, background, or experience. It sounds daunting. As was mentioned, the commission traveled the country. We visited 22 states across all 9 census districts, visited urban centers, suburban neighborhoods, and rural towns, spoke with elected leaders, nonprofit organizations, faith-based communities, middle school, high school, and college students, with those who serve and with those who don't. We heard from Americans about their desire to serve, the barriers to service, and their ideas for inspiring more people to serve. 2 centuries after de Tocqueville, the commission found that Americans still want to serve. They just need to be given the chance. But in spite of what we found and what we recommended, there are still a lot of skeptics out there. So we must be prepared to answer the questions of why. What is the return on investment? Now, to everyone in this room, those answers are obvious. Service within and across communities breaks down cultural barriers, builds support, builds respect, and strengthens collaboration, understanding, and dialogue. Service beginning at an early stage and continuing throughout one's lifetime also develops skills and leadership among those who participate, maximizes federal investments in pursuit of local, state, and national solutions, helps develop the nation's workforce, and brings people together to meet the critical needs of the nation. It is clear that civic engagement and service are critical to the health and well-being of the nation. A civil society sustained by a robust culture of service and a strong sense of community will be better inoculated against and able to respond to the myriad challenges and threats that it may face in the future. Service makes communities stronger and strengthens American democracy. So the question really isn't why, but instead, why not? The commission issued its final report in 2021 and called for a service moonshot, where by the year 2031, the 70th anniversary of President Kennedy's 1961 inaugural speech, in which he famously asked not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and challenged every American to contribute in some way to the public good, that 5 million Americans will begin to serve in military, national, or public service annually, including 1 million individuals annually taking up federally supported national service opportunities. Now, in order to reach this lofty goal, we must address what I like to call the 3 A's of service: awareness, aspiration, and access. You can't be what you don't know. Nearly a third of Gen Zers, more than 60% of young people ages 14 through 24, state that they are unaware of existing national service opportunities. This is in part due to their limited exposure to participants in national service, the decentralized nature of national service marketing, confusion over branding, and differences in recruiting across programs, although improvements have been made and continue to be made in this area. The surest way to increase awareness is to elevate the concept of service to a national imperative, a national call to service, akin to President Kennedy's exhortation. While almost every presidential administration since FDR launched initiatives focused on service, there has been no sustained effort to create a focal point for these efforts or to unlock the potential of valuable cross-service initiatives. Establishing an interagency council in the White House would elevate all streams of service and provide a forum for encouraging coordination, communication, and promulgation of best practices while fostering a whole-of-government approach to coordinate and promote military, national, and public service. These 3 streams of service share fundamental characteristics, yet the agencies responsible for them have minimal, if any, collaboration. Because efforts to advertise service opportunities and encourage participation are siloed by service agency, their impact is weakened. Joint advertising campaigns, shared market research, and cross-service incentives will promote awareness of opportunities, encourage participation, and unite these distinct streams of service under the common goal of enhancing the lives of all Americans. For example, linking recruiting efforts between military and national service can provide aspiring individuals who are ineligible for one service information about opportunities in the other, or follow on and continuing service opportunities at the conclusion of an initial service term, what I like to call heroes in search of their next mission. And that's bidirectional. We heard from individuals who used their Siegel post-educational award to pay for their first year of college, enrolled in ROTC, received a commission, and then went on to serve in uniform. And we heard from uniform members who, at the conclusion of their military service, continued to serve in nonprofits like Team Rubicon. Once aware of the opportunities, individuals need to aspire to be motivated to serve, whether for altruistic reasons or because of the tangible benefits like a stipend or job training. It doesn't matter. What matters is getting people in the door, because, as we know, if they are given a meaningful and fulfilling experience, they will be hooked and will continue to look for opportunities to serve throughout their lifetimes. So how do we nudge people down this path of service? It begins with a significant investment in civic education and service learning, both of which are critical to preparing young Americans to realize their obligations as citizens and expose them to opportunities to engage in service and actively participate in civic life. You know, what does it say about the state of our nation's civic education when 22% of American adults cannot name any of the 3 branches of government, and 37% do not know any of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment to the Constitution? The late Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, a fierce proponent of civic education, once stated, and I quote, "The only reason why we have public school education in America is because in the early days of the country, our leaders thought we had to teach our young generation about citizenship. That obligation never ends," end quote. Federal funding for civic education has plummeted in the past decade. and pales in comparison to support for other subjects. The federal government provides only about $5 million, million with an M, for civic education, compared to the over $3.2 billion with a B dollars in support of STEM education. In an environment of competing curricular demands, teacher shortages, and financial challenges in many districts, limited federal investment in civic education makes it increasingly difficult for teachers and schools to treat this essential topic as a priority. Yet without a solid base of knowledge about the principles of the U.S. system of government and an understanding that with the rights of citizenship come responsibilities, many Americans are ill-equipped to becoming contributing members of civil society. Now, I'm not just talking about, a single semester of U.S. government or AP American history in high school, but a reinvigorated and integrated civic education curriculum where students across the country will gain the ability to identify social and civic problems in their community, state, and nation, and understand how they can make a difference. And this is not isolated to the classroom. Because students who participate in service learning opportunities demonstrate better academic performance, a deeper understanding of civic responsibility, and a stronger ethic of service, the curriculum must include age-appropriate service learning programs that will expose students to service and its many benefits. Beginning in elementary school and continuing through middle and high school, students should have the chance to participate in a stepwise progression of service opportunities, from a single, focused, one-day project to a more comprehensive, longer duration project as they approach graduation. Let's really think outside the box and take the final spring semester of senior year, when most students have completed their graduation requirements and are really just checked out, waiting to start college or a job, and make that a semester of service. Increasing aspiration continues with an enhanced benefits package. Now, as has been discussed today, while the concept of service is importantly and rightfully based on volunteerism, significant financial barriers prevent many Americans from pursuing national service. And those who serve, especially in year-long programs, must be able to withstand the financial sacrifices that service entails. Currently, the living allowance and other benefits received during a service term are meant to help meet members' cost of living expenses. The allowance is intentionally modest, but often it is so low, just above the poverty level, that members cannot sustain themselves without outside assistance. And many rely on family support or enroll in public assistance programs just to make ends meet. Limitations on the post-service Siegel Education Award also hamper its ability to act as a strong incentive to serve. While it provides AmeriCorps alumni the equivalent of a Pell Grant, which can be used to pay for college tuition or pay down student loan debt, it covers only about 60% of the average cost of tuition at an in-state school. And unlike other educational award programs, is subject to federal and state income taxes, decreasing its monetary value. Actions that can be taken to modernize the benefits associated with national service programs include increasing the AmeriCorps Living Allowance, the Senior Corps Stipend, and the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. Additionally, the Siegel Award should be exempt from income taxes, allow a cash-out option, be transferable, and promote in-state tuition for national service alumni. A reformed compensation and benefit system will reduce obstacles to service and encourage many more people who do not have other means of financial support to explore national service opportunities. Knowing there is a tangible recognition to be earned at the conclusion of the term of service could also motivate more Americans to serve. Service programs should provide an official record of completion of national service that includes information on training received and certification or licenses earned. A standardized completion of service certificate would enable individuals to have an officially nationally recognized record of their service accomplishments. More comprehensive than anything that's already being provided, the certificate would be similar to the Department of Defense's DD-214, Certificate of Release or Discharge from Active Duty. This would be very useful for a variety of purposes, including applications for jobs or for admission to institutions of higher education. by showing up front that participants in national service can reap substantial benefits from serving, to include better employment prospects, higher wages, and achievement of educational goals, we can increase the aspiration to serve. Okay, so let's assume we are wildly successful with the first two A's, and the entire US population is aware of the opportunities and is sufficiently motivated to want to serve. Now we must ensure that they can access a service opportunity that meets not only the needs of the community or the nation, but their personal needs as well. A component of the joint marketing campaign that I mentioned in building awareness should include the creation of an online platform similar to and expanding upon the Serve section of the AmeriCorps website or the justserve.org site. The platform, and eventually its corresponding app, because we're not going to do anything with young folks unless it has an app, would function as a one-stop shop for service opportunities across all service providers, local, state, tribal, and national, and all service streams. This virtual clearinghouse would provide immeasurable benefits for individual Americans and service organizations by enabling individuals to view all available opportunities and learn about the various organizations and ways to serve. You know, as I learned, if you've got to click more than 3 or 4 times to get to where you want to go, we are losing the Gen Zers, right? So that is why a one-stop shop, digital one-stop shop, is so important. It would then match them with opportunities that meet not only their criteria, like the type of service they want to provide and where they want to provide it, but also the needs of participating organizations. Of course, all of what I discussed thus far is really moot if there is not a space in which to put the face. So despite high demand and a clear need in areas ranging from education to economic opportunity, from healthcare to environmental conservation, and in disaster preparedness and recovery, service opportunities available through AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, Peace Corps have remained roughly static at about 300 million a year. 300,000, excuse me. I wish 300 million. 300,000 a year. And that's why the commission called for more than a tripling of national service opportunities to 1 million by 2031. Now, while the American Recovery Act provided additional funding to expand service opportunities in response to the COVID pandemic, a new level of sustained investment will make national service opportunities available to more Americans. In addition to expanding existing programs, we need to look at innovative models that can also strengthen and expand national service. One such idea is to shift the paradigm of the gap year. With a reputation as a year between high school and college where affluent teens travel to youth hostels of Europe, we should change this to the idea and be rebranded to a bridge year, a year where all teens, regardless of socioeconomic background, have an opportunity to spend a year in service through a new National Service Fellowship Program, where they can participate in any certified community, faith-based, or nonprofit organization. And again, Governor Cox and the state of Utah are leading by example with the proposed One Utah Service Fellowship. Whether a bridge to post-secondary education or employment, such a program will allow participants to explore interests in a structured manner and mature their thoughts about their future plans and direction. It will also significantly expand the universe of opportunities for national service by addressing many of the challenges faced in making national service truly national. For example, more Americans would be able to pursue service opportunities in their own communities because they would be empowered to seek out programs that fit their desires and choose where they want to serve. And smaller organizations, especially in areas such as rural and tribal regions that have few existing philanthropic resources, would now be able to host national service members. During the commission's travel, we spent time at an inner city high school. So I thought my military and medical experience might be an asset to them, so I volunteered, eventually becoming the department's medical director. This was possible because I was at that point in my career and personal life where I had the flexibility to continue to serve, but in a different way. Now, up until then, my time helping people was all reactive and targeted, right? Someone was always in need of assistance before I became involved. So I wondered how I could be more proactive and constant, helping people before they were in trouble. That led me to my stint in politics and attempts at enacting public policies that could benefit the larger population in advance of need. Now, I tell you all this not to demonstrate my inability to stay focused or to hold down a single long-term job, but just to demonstrate how one service opportunity set me up for the next, the cradle to grave continuum service. And my story is not unique. We've heard from people here today. I want to tell you about one more. This is Pearl, who we met when we were visiting Denver. Her story, and I'm quoting. I came to the Mile High Youth Corps Youth Build AmeriCorps program in Denver, Colorado, in hopes of turning my life around. I dropped out of high school at 14 and ran away from home. After hearing Youth Build AmeriCorps members speak about the differences they were making in their communities, I applied to Mile High and began my service in February 2018. I dedicated my time in the program to earning my high school equivalency, nurse's aid certificate, and Siegel Award. By working hard and earning independent service hours not on the weekend at food banks, community gardens, hospitals, I reached these goals 3 months early. I did this while upholding my responsibilities within the program to provide health and wellness services to low-income residents in Denver. I then enrolled in college with a focus on nursing. I plan on being the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree. My experience was life-changing. Since completing my term of service, I continue to be involved with Youth Build by serving on the Mile High Alumni Council and was recognized as an emerging leader by Youth Build USA. AmeriCorps gave me the confidence I needed to begin acting on the issues I wanted to change. I was able to turn everything I had been through into something worth living for. Pearl's experience clearly demonstrates the transformative power of service. Now, what I've laid out today is both to strengthen national service in order to address critical domestic needs, invigorate civil society, and strengthen our democracy. The great state of Utah is well on the way. But if we are going to get every American inspired and eager to serve, we must all lead by example, just like the governor and the first lady in the state of Utah. So, along with the governor and the first lady, I'm inviting all of you to rededicate yourself to the cause, to show up, to serve, to do good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right, thank you. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves today. It's a great pleasure to be here today. in Utah and their impact on individuals, organizations, and communities throughout the state. This panel will explore these efforts on a national lens, particularly how service and volunteering efforts contribute to our democracy, as well as how we follow Utah's lead in expanding these opportunities for individuals across the nation. I'm pleased to be joined by a very esteemed panel of national leaders, and I'm pleased to introduce them here for you to hear their perspectives. First, to my immediate right is Amy Louise Richardson, who is a political scientist who for the past year has served as the president of the Carnegie Corporation in New York. The Carnegie Corporation is a philanthropic fund that was established in 1911 by Andrew Carnegie. Prior to her current role, Louise had over in academia, including roles at the University of Oxford as well as Harvard University. Next, we have Jennifer Sarangelo, who is the president and CEO of Place of Light, a global network of volunteer mobilizing organizations offering creative, impactful, and inspiring ways for people to engage in their communities and take action to solve problems. Prior to her current role, Jennifer served in leadership roles for several youth service organizations, including the National 4-H Council, as well as the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Next, we have Sonali Jawam, who serves as the director of AmeriCorps State and National, the largest grant program of the Federal AmeriCorps Agency. The AmeriCorps Agency is the nation's largest grant maker in support of service and volunteerism efforts across the country. A particular note is that Sonali is the first AmeriCorps alum to serve as the director of AmeriCorps State and National in the agency's 30-year history. In the last on our panel, we have Mary Ellen Sprinkle, who is the CEO of the CORE Network, the National Association of Service and Conservation Corps Programs. The network supports core programming through the nation through advocacy, access to funding and projects, as well as offering expertise in core operations. Mary Ellen is a longtime advocate for youth and service, including experience working on Capitol Hill. So here are our panelists for this afternoon. So Louise, I'd like to start with you if I could. So as we talked about the title of this panel, we were talking about service and volunteering as the golden thread of democracy. So I'm curious in your thoughts about why is today's conversation on service so critical when we think about democracy in the US today?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank Governor Cox and his team for bringing us all here together and for providing an antidote to the very pressing political environment both nationally and globally. It's wonderful to be in such a gathering with such an optimistic outlook on the future. We all need that. And thank you too to General Hick for his work and that of the Commissioner. I found myself in agreement with everything he was saying, although I probably as an educator wouldn't want to sacrifice the last semester of high school. I probably would do what they do in France and have students get the summer after high school to a service project. And finally, just on that note, I would say that as a naturalized American, I had to pass a citizenship test. It seems to me that the staggeringly pressing figures the General gave us might be reduced if, as a condition of graduating from high school, all our students pass the citizenship test. But getting back to the question you asked, yes, we talked about the golden thread through American democracy, and there have been several references throughout the morning to Alexis de Tocqueville. It's also the case that 100 years afterwards, Theodore Roosevelt recommended a year's national service as a way of integrating immigrants into this country. That was about the same time Andrew Carnegie founded the Carnegie Corporation, and we have invested in education and democracy and looking at international peace since then. But it seems to me it has never been more important, even taking a long sweep, not so long in international terms, but long sweep of American history, that this concept of service has never been more important than it is today. I think the fragility of American democracy has been exposed to a degree that I personally find quite frightening. The data amongst young people that they have much less faith in our institutions than they ever had before, that they have much less faith in democracy than they ever had before, is very sobering. It seems to me that a year of national service would be a way of, first of all, informing our young people about our democracy, as the General alluded to. Who's going to commit a year to an enterprise they don't even understand? So our young people need to be educated as to what a democracy is, and for all its imperfections, what the alternatives are. And one way of ensuring that they value what we have is by contributing something to it themselves. And so I think your service would be a way also of trying to mitigate the political polarization that is such a threat to our democracy. There are fewer and fewer opportunities for our young people to meet across racial, regional, and class lines. And a year of national service, or a period of national service, would be a way of ensuring that they can meet one another. And because again, as was alluded to earlier, it's very hard to hate up close. We need to break down barriers, provide opportunities to break down barriers so that our young people can empathize with one another, people who are very different from themselves. The evidence of growing polarization is everywhere, and there's also been what the political scientists now refer to as affective polarization. So throughout our history, we have disagreed with one another, of course we have. But what we're seeing today is what's called affective polarization, which is that we actively dislike the people with whom we disagree. And that is actually a new and very dangerous development, and one I think that is a threat to our democracy. So I hope that we will, again, several people alluded to in these days of concerns about plagiarism, we should give credit, and it was Justice Brandeis who initially referred to states as laboratories of democracy. And I think we have an opportunity today for states to serve as laboratories for initiatives on national service, which is why we at the Carnegie Corporation are so proud to support the initiative currently underway in Utah. And indeed, we look forward to supporting others. We very much hope that this initiative will serve as a model to other states, and that we can soon see many states trying to, following Utah's lead and the lead of the Governor of Maryland in introducing a year's national service. With that, that's it.
Thank you. For the support of this initiative. I think that's very, very exciting, and we need others to step up and help provide more funding so that we can expand and scale this work. So Jennifer, the same question to you. So when you think about service, how is it really helping to advance our democracy?
Well, first, I hope you can hear me. I don't know. Hello? There we go. That's better. I can tell. Good. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you also to Governor Cox and to First Lady for you all, your leadership here. I especially want to thank you. You heard my background in positive youth development at the national level. And I want to thank you for the very authentic youth voice you have brought to this symposium. It's not every governor who puts two panels of young people under 30 in front of this kind of group. So thank you. Rich and Alan and everyone for the great work you're doing with More Perfect. We're proud to be one of your partners and look forward to continuing in the trenches together. Me newer than you, but excited to be in it with you. For those of you that don't know, just really quick, Points of Light is a global nonprofit organization founded by President George H.W. Bush because of his belief and passion in service as an essential part of the definition of a successful life. And everyone that I've seen up here today is an embodiment of that. And so I'm very thrilled to be here to be a part of that. Today, we are a global network of 145 affiliates in 39 countries, with serving about 216.7 million hours of service across the globe. And we also work with multinational corporations like the panel you have here today with local leadership, really global leadership in service. We work with about 250 of those companies as well. So that's a little bit about the platform we use today, building on President Bush's belief in service as part of the definition of a successful life. But the reason I'm here today, and we think this is important, we're very pleased to be here, is that we're here to sound the alarm. As one of the nation's leading advocates for service volunteerism, the numbers are not good. The alarm needs to be sound. We are here to do it. Volunteerism is going down. Our numbers are steadily declining. I don't have to tell you that. The last number was 17%, 7% year over year. The numbers about giving are what scares me tremendously. The philanthropic numbers we've just gotten from Giving Today, Giving USA. from the Lilly Endowment, all the compilations of giving last year. It's very scary. This is not normal in American society for volunteering to be going down and giving to be going down. I've been in this industry for 25 years from my beginning first nonprofit job, working in a garage, literally at a home center. And giving has always been going up. And so we're sounding the alarm. These are the canary in the coal mine telling us, if we didn't already know it, exactly what Louise just said. It's well documented that we are in a very fragile time. And we are dedicating our network to strengthening what can we do to reverse this trend. To me, that's the only goal we can have around volunteerism is it cannot keep declining. That is too risky for our democracy. And what will we be doing as a movement to reverse that trend? We need to see our hockey stick going out. So that's why we're here today. That's why we believe this is so important. Can you all hear me? Excellent. Thank you. I learned. Good clue. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiana Ujal, and as Kyra shared, I have the privilege of serving as the director of AmeriCorps. To start, I do want to just thank Governor Cox and his team, the First Lady and her team, the More Perfect team for hosting us. And I also want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and the You Serve Utah team that we at the agency have the privilege of working with this partnership to advance AmeriCorps and service opportunities across the state. So thank you to Loggins and his team as well. I really love this question because I also just think about my own service experience, and I think also just to what Jennifer shared, how much it meant to me to be here, to hear the voice of young people, and to even to take a moment and to reflect on my own experience when I was a young person, wearing a red jacket as a senior, and getting close to the challenges of my own community. And I think it most certainly changed my life, and it most certainly inspired me to choose a life of public service. And so to have served as an AmeriCorps member and to now serve as the director of AmeriCorps, where I get to inform the decisions of our entities and our members, feels like we brought that proximity to Washington, D.C., and I hope that all of you will feel the impacts of me being in this role, and hopefully many more alumni being in this role in the future. Maybe one of the incredible young people that we heard from today, maybe Ruby, she might be coming for my job. So I think fundamentally, we all know that service is critical to strengthening our democracy. It brings us together, it helps us see each other as individuals, and it allows us to have this feeling of humanity and connection that I think is so important, especially at a time like today. And I think for the last 3 decades, we've been betting on national service. And we have watched as national service bridges differences, responds to disasters, it strengthens communities, and it improves the lives of those who have made that really incredible decision to serve and to serve their country. And we see that paying off in the ways in which our young people and members continue to serve. We also see it paying off in the ways that I think our states are innovating. And I think sitting here today and listening to the incredible work that the leadership and vision that the state of Utah is bringing, the vision that we see happening in Maryland, we see this innovation. What more can we do as states, and how can we do it together? And how can we build on what the federal agency is putting forth to do more, to be responsive, to understand what's happening in our communities. So the people that understand that best are our state commissions, our governors, the people who know their communities and know their states. And so I think that there is this moment that we are in right now where we know we see this challenge, where we have this concern, and we know that service is a way to make a difference, and bringing people together is a way to make a difference. And I think
We see that right now. We see it happening. And I just feel very inspired that we get to be in this room and we get to kick off this year, 2024, where a lot is going to happen this year for our country and for our people. And we're choosing to center around service and the way it's going to strengthen us. So I think we'll just leave it there.
Thanks, Sonali. And also, I appreciate you calling out again the role that governors can play in all of this work, certainly in the role of state service commissions and really helping to advance these opportunities. I think that that's a really important part. And I hope that folks will take the time to really look at the report that was released earlier today, because I think there's so many grand ideas in there that really can help push this forward nationally. So Mary Ellen, I will kick it to you and your thoughts about service and democracy.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Mary Ellen Sprinkle, the president and CEO of the Corps Network, which is the National Association of Service and Conservation Corps. And I too would like to echo my colleagues' gratitude for the governor and More Perfect for bringing such an esteemed and passionate group of people together at such a critical time. And I agree with Sonali that it's a great way to start the new year with an optimistic outlook on where we can go. So the Corps Network is a national association. We currently represent about 150 programs across the country, everywhere from community-based, state-based. I think that Utah Conservation Corps is in the room. There they are. And one of the young ladies from the panel earlier who is going into firefighting went through Utah Conservation Corps. I think American Conservation Experience might be here as well. But since 2001, Utah Conservation Corps has engaged almost 3,000 AmeriCorps members to commit 2 million hours of service to the state of Utah, doing all kinds of environmental stewardship projects, trail building, habitat restoration, tree planting. And if Mr. Ivory is still here, I think that they could help with his tree planting project. And ACE, which is a national program, does much the same on the national level. Today, collectively, our corps engage almost 25,000 young people annually in community environmental stewardship or conservation-focused service across the country. And that can vary from planting trees and fighting wildfire to installing solar panels and retrofitting low-income housing. So it's very diverse. So we are definitely excited to be part of this conversation, and I have had the opportunity to see firsthand the transformational experience that young people can get by doing service, by working in teams for common goals, people from different backgrounds and different geographies, and the bonds that it builds. I'm going to make a little bit of connection to history. I know there were a couple of history buffs in the room. This is not the first time our country has found ourselves in a pretty divisive situation and utilized national service to bridge some of those divides and move us forward. Service and conservation corps are based on the model of the civilian Conservation Corps of the 1930s, which President Roosevelt established during the Depression to provide 3 million young, mostly white men an opportunity to earn a wage, develop job skills, and collectively they completed, they planted 1 billion trees, developed 800 parks and recreation facilities across the country, restored lots and lots of habitat, and are responsible for a lot of the infrastructure that we use and rely on today. The young people that went through that program not only contributed a lot to our country through their project work, but they formed bonds and developed probably a sense of patriotism and commitment to each other that we haven't seen since. So young people, young men from all over the country came to live together and work together on common goals. They had different backgrounds. They came from all over. And they left more able to represent the U.S. in the military when we joined World War II. They were in a mental and physical condition to be able to fight. They also had a commitment to our country, like I said, that we haven't seen before, and to each other. Then they came back and they built one of the strongest economies we have ever seen in history. And I think that we can use that as an example of where we can utilize national service today to bridge some of these divides, to bring people together, to build a workforce, to build bridges, and to build a country that is proud and committed to each other, and as we heard, willing to step in and help no matter where you are. So I think this may be an opportunity, actually, and I'm pleased to join a lot of people who I think feel the same way.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. And I appreciate you providing that historical context and how the current core movement is definitely related to the efforts in the 1930s as well. So I'm going to open up our next question to everyone on the panel, so please feel free to jump in, and I have a feeling we're going to kind of build on one another as part of this next question. So I want you to think about where you would like to see service and volunteerism in 3 to 5 years. So obviously thinking about what we've shared in Utah today, certainly what's happening in Maryland, California, other states across the country, but where would you like to see service and volunteering nationwide in 3 to 5 years? And then also your suggestions on how we're going to get there, right? It's one thing to talk about where we want to be, but what are some of the tangible steps that we can be taking across the nation in order to do that? Louise, looks like you're ready.
I'm ready.
All
Thank
right.
you. Well, I very much hope that we will be looking at a growing momentum in favor of more and more states adopting national service. And I certainly hope we will be moving towards a position where there would be a greater likelihood of federal funding, or much greater funding. I mean, it seems to me tragic that for every Peace Corps volunteer that's accepted, we turn down 3 fully qualified volunteers because there isn't the funding for them. But it seems to me if we want to get that funding, we have to think not about the people in this room. None of us need to be persuaded about the benefits of national service. I think we need to think about the skeptics. And I think we need to have a very clear-cut definition of what we mean by national service. I expect we're talking about lots of different things. I think we need to start gathering systematic, unimpeachable data. This report we have is wonderful. It's filled with terrific ideas. But we need to have systematic data that's gathered from day one. So I would encourage everyone involved in a service project to think about how others are collecting data and gather it so that we can present a united front with unimpeachable evidence about what we all believe the great value of national service. So I think if we do this, we're much more likely to persuade the skeptics and get to where we want to be, which is where every state in the country every young person in the country wants to participate in a full year of national service.
Thank you. I love that idea of unimpeachable data, right? Like that's just so compelling to think about, like, yes, here's the data, here's how we can demonstrate exactly what this is. Because I think one of the things that we see in our larger field is we're good at telling stories, and that's really, really important. But being able to have the data behind that as well for those that might be the skeptics, I think that that's really valuable. So thank you. Others on the panel, where would you like to see service in 3 to 5 years?
Sure, happy to. I think I'd say that the federal government can't do it alone. So let's just start there. We have to do it in partnership with our states and with our communities. We have to do this work together. The funding, yes, we'd like more funding, but we'd love more federal funding, but we'd also love to see how states step up. I think this morning Governor Cox talked about how about the initiative that is being launched here, the Service Year Fellowship, and talked about the partnership that he has with Governor Moore and the importance of how you all will innovate and show an example to the rest of the country of what is possible. And I think that's so important. And so how are we ensuring that these moments of innovation have the success that they need, that they have the data, they show the potential, so that other states can step up and say like, oh, I have a state service commission. How am I partnering with my commission? How am I building on the AmeriCorps resources that exist in my state? And how am I creating more opportunities for young people to serve, or for anyone to serve? It doesn't have to be someone who's 18 to 24. It can be anyone who is 18 to alive, as we like to say. So I think making sure that we really see this as an opportunity to do it together. And not to do it in opposition of one another. Service brings us together. Let's show how it does that federally and statewide as well.
Thanks for that, Sonali. And I mean, again, obviously, I'm a little bit biased in my thoughts about the states. Hence, I represent the Association for the State Service Commissions, but I do think it is an important partnership, right? And I think it is that federal piece, the state piece, and also private philanthropy as well, and also corporate resources as well. It's going to take, if we want to really scale this idea, we're going to have all of those rise and not just one or the other. I think that's going to be a really important part. So I really appreciate you highlighting that, Sonali. Yeah, Jennifer.
Sure, I'll jump in with
Yeah.
just two things are on my mind. If in 3 to 5 years, the kind of what success would look like from a summit like today. I'm going to take what you said, Louise, but I'm going to go. I think I would love to see 50% of the states with what we've seen in Maryland and Utah. I think that's ambitious, but I think it would be exciting to try for something like that. I also believe we're going to need to look at changing the perception of service and volunteerism. This is a cultural thing. This is not easy. This is for Gen Pop, and it's going to be hard. But changing the perception of volunteerism and service is a nice to have to an essential. And that's kind of what I'll be honest, we're kind of cooking on at Points of Light right now, is what that looks like. How do we create the urgency, the relevance, the criticality of this isn't just something nice. Isn't it nice that we have a beautiful panel of young people talking about their great, why is this essential? And we're working on that why right now. So that I believe that's something that we can together, we're going to need to work on this whole movement. And then, and to us, the other would be how, and a part of that is how we begin to connect service and volunteering really as a pathway for reducing polarization and healing the divides both in our country and around the world. And while I think we in the room believe that, I don't think the general public or people that aren't in this room would be making those connections. And for those of us that are at a national level, have a megaphone, those are the things we're thinking about how we can contribute to the culture change that we need to see in the next 3 to 5 years.
Marianne.
Okay. For me, actually, this is an easy question, but I have to warn you that my perspective of national service comes heavily through the lens of conservation. But I do think that it could apply to just about any kind of service, whether it be in the classroom, the food banks, healthcare. I personally have been working with various administrations for about 15 years to stand up a 21st century conservation corps reminiscent of the original CCC to engage young people across the country. I don't know if that makes me committed or crazy, but it does make me older. But we started with Secretary Salazar in the Obama administration with a federal advisory committee on how to get to 100,000 young people serving on public lands across the country. There is a blueprint that exists. It talks about where the money can come from, what recruiting has to happen, where AmeriCorps needs to lean in, where business and philanthropy. There is a pretty well thought out plan. Started to implement it with Secretary Jewell and had a number of really great conversations with Secretary Bernhardt in the Trump administration, who would refer to himself as an opportunity youth, who needed some direction and purpose and found it in working with his hands in the great outdoors. So he understood. This is not a blue or red issue. It's unfortunately sometimes becomes a political football, but it shouldn't be. Recently, President Biden launched the American Climate Corps, and its name has changed over the course of time, and I don't necessarily feel like it matters what you call it. Conservation, environmental stewardship, climate, outdoor recreation corps. But I think that we need something like this to not only deal with a lot of the issues that our country is currently facing, but to bridge divides and to bring people together. General Heck, you mentioned needing alignment across the federal government. I completely agree with you. I am pleased to say, and I need to mention that AmeriCorps will be taking the lead on implementing this across the federal government. So no pressure. So right before Christmas, 7 federal departments signed a memorandum of understanding on how they plan to support American Climate Corps, and that's Interior, Agriculture, Labor, Energy, EPA, NOAA, and I'm missing one. Agriculture, Forest Service, yes. So what they are looking to do with the help of government partners, philanthropy, business, is provide opportunities for 20,000 young people to serve and to get workforce development training through the American Climate Corps. They are tasked with looking at how they can utilize funding from the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act to support project work. There was at one point in the plan another 20 billion for education and workforce development and AmeriCorps. That part was stripped, which leaves us with quite a significant gap, but there is still billions of dollars of project work that needs to happen across the country, an investment in our infrastructure that is desperately needed. But there's also not a workforce to get these important projects done, which is another way that AmeriCorps and National Service can lean in by engaging young people, particularly opportunity youth who face barriers to employment, in these workforce development programs, doing projects in their own communities. They can earn certificates and credentials. We at the Core Network have been working with union partners to develop pre-apprenticeship models so young people can count their terms of service directly towards apprenticeship. So I guess that's a long way of saying, let's see, 3 to 5 years, I would love to see 300,000 to 500,000 young people in some kind of a conservation corps program, or in an education corps program, or a healthcare program. I think it's also important to note that the White House opened up a portal when it launched American Climate Corps, and almost immediately 50,000 young people signed up expressing an interest to learn more and serve. There is an interest, as we've heard today, young people want to serve. We need to give them an opportunity, and there is a need.
Lisa, go ahead.
Can I just add one thing that I think Mary Ellen highlighted and I think is so important, is in 3 to 5 years, I think I'd like any AmeriCorps member or any member that serves to be able to articulate what service gave back to them, and not just it changed my life and it informed me about my community, but it gave me the skills and tools and insights that I needed when I got my next job. And it gave me this pathway to consider that I hadn't considered for a long time. And I think we see that with the American Climate Corps, which we are very excited to be able to serve as the hub and the agency that does a significant level of coordination. But we also saw it with the Public Health AmeriCorps, which highlighted the importance of workforce development and pathways for young people or for any individuals who serve. So I think that return on the investment of their time is really important. And I think we heard that earlier today, and I would want to make sure that they could speak to that as well.
Thanks for that, Sonali. Jennifer.
If I could just add one last
please.
thing that's kind of hit me is, especially today with the young people that have been featured here, is I'm fairly new to this movement. I'm 4 months in at Points of Light, and I'm in the shadow of giants of people who've been doing this for 35 years or more. And I guess I've been kind of thinking about the other thing around for Points of Light is thinking about what's from 5 years from now, who will be that next generation of leaders? It's going to be you, Alan, in 30 years from now. Who are they? How do we empower them the way you were empowered to start something? What does that look like? How do we use the platforms and the influence we have to support that? So we're looking for that innovation. So I just want to invite anyone that's out there, if you've got ideas, come see me. Because if in 5 years we're able to have some of that incubated, like the next gen, what will be inspiring my 18-year-old niece to go into service instead of what she's thinking about today, then I'll feel pretty successful.
That's great, Jennifer. And I want to just kind of build on that. We have a couple minutes left for the panel. So talking about your 18-year-old niece and kind of trying to get her into this life of service, what types of incentives do you think are important? And I think that's for young people or actually individuals of any age to really think about volunteerism, think about service opportunities wherever they are in their life. Like, what are some of the incentives do you try to put out there to have more people serve? Any thoughts anyone has?
Well, I think Lucy provided a very good answer earlier. She said, make it cool, make it fun.
They also said accessible. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. We've built access platforms that make sense to us. They don't to them. So we've got to be letting them lead, giving away power, ensuring they have the opportunity. They said that too. They said, ask us what I think it was Lucy that said, ask us what we want to do. So I think we have to listen.
Well, one, I would say we're in the right place to learn how to incentivize volunteerism because Utah is #1 in the country. But I would also say that they're #1, and we heard this morning, because of the culture that has been created around service and volunteerism. And I think it's important for us to think about how we speak about the work that we do and how we show pride in what we do and why we do it, and that we bring a level of dignity and prestige to this work. It is hard work, but it is really important work. And I think Ruby said it this morning, we're watching and other people are watching. And so how do we help them see that same pride and that same importance in the work and the choices that they make when they do something that might be a little different than their peers, but it feels right and it continues to be right? Because I think Minat said when she walked into the room, she felt like she was with her people and she felt like she was part of something. And it was that community. This community is one that builds connection and welcomes others. And so how do we continue to do that?
Mary Ellen, anything you want to add?
Sure. I think the culture exists and it's there. It just sort of needs to be resurrected. As I mentioned, 50,000 young people have already signed up to learn more about American Climate Corps, and that's without any advertising. They haven't really, no promotion. So that just makes me think that there is a lot of desire for young people to serve. My own sons served in several conservation corps, including Earth Corps, on which Bridge is the board, digging trash out of the Anacostia River. And my son, who is now studying environmental science, says, "Mom, I can't sit behind a desk. I need to be out doing something. I need to actually feel like I'm making a difference." And I think that's shared by a lot of young people his age. And then for a whole other segment of the population, I think it's, at least in my experience, they come to service and conservation corps not with the idea of serving, but with the idea of a second chance, an opportunity to complete high school, to gain job skills, to be connected with an employer. And for those young people, they come and they experience and they develop a commitment to service probably that goes beyond what we can even understand because of their own experience. They develop that, but that's not why they are initially attracted to service. They need an opportunity. And for those young people, we need to think about how do we subsidize the experience? How do we deal with things like the criminal history check that may keep them from serving? How can we make sure that there is workforce development built into it? How do we allow them to use the education award in a way that makes sense for them since they may not be college bound? I think that there are a number of ways that we can incentivize service, but I don't think we have to work really hard because I think the desire is there.
Great, thank you. Please join me in thanking our panel for today's conversation. Just quickly.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, stand up and give me one of these. Yeah.
I don't want you to leave your chair though, because you'll take up from this fabulous panel's time. But move your arms around, do some jumping jacks, whatever it takes. Big, deep breath. I got a bad back. Anybody want to do downward dog? That would be great. Turn it up. Okay, how's that? Okay, perfect. All right. We'll give everybody a second to sit back down. First of all, Governor and First Lady, thank you very, very much for sponsoring this and having us here today. What an incredible subject we get to talk about. I started my own problem. Sorry about that. I could just tell everybody needed a little bit of wiggle. Now they're over there. If you've got a stick, go get them back over here. I'm lacking incentives right now, that's for sure. All right, we'll get going. Let me start simply by introducing myself. My name is Taylor Randall. I am president of the University of Utah. And thank you. I hope there are a few in the audience. We are blessed in the state with a remarkable set of universities. And I have seen a couple of my colleagues here today. Would the other university presidents just stand up for a second and take a bow? I saw a few here from our technical colleges as well. Hi, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, this, I think, topic of service is one where we actually don't disagree on too much, but we are certainly solid in this in the same camp. What was fun for me in preparing for this panel is to think about how service affected my life. So was it Sonali that asked the question? I want somebody to actually be able to articulate what a service experience did for me. And I have had two, maybe more, very significant services experiences in my life. And actually, this is the first question I'm going to pose to the panel before we get into the deep dive. I think we ought to ask Sonali's question. What has service done in our life? I am one of the many state residents that spent some time on a church mission. So you knock doors and get rejected. And I will tell you, as a university president, I ask for a lot of things and I get rejected a lot. And I will tell you, it's never as bad as that service experience was. So that is exactly what that taught me. It was spectacular. I can handle rejection. The second experience I reflected on as I was getting ready for this panel is I was a graduate student. I went to the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School. I wanted to be a Wall Street monster. And while I was getting my MBA, I actually started doing some service in West Philadelphia. I was a basketball coach. I was not particularly successful. And as I got to know these kids that I was coaching, I realized all of them were dropping out of school. And so I put together a tutoring program. And it was the craziest tutoring program I had ever seen because all of my classmates came from all over the world. And here were these kind of kids from inner city Philadelphia that were dropping out of school. And we tried to keep them in school. And to be quite honest with you, I realized that my future career on Wall Street was not as important to me as educating people. And that is actually where I made my big career change. In the middle of an MBA, taking out wonderful student loans, which I finally paid off years later, I decided to become an educator. And so services meant a lot to me in my life. And we have with us today, I'm going to let Ann Milner take her turn at this question. Ann is a former president of Weber State University, which, by the way, just celebrated a birthday yesterday. Not Ann, but the university. Sorry, I'm getting this all in trouble really fast here. I'm so sorry. No, sorry. Anyway, it's older than all of us. Let's just say that, perhaps cumulatively. Anyway, but Ann, why don't she's also a state senator. We're so happy to have her on the panel. Why don't you take a crack at this question? I'll just give you this.
You're gonna need that? Is it working now? Okay. We wouldn't want to take your mic away from you,
Well,
Taylor,
you
you know.
promised me you will.
Okay, so for me, I came to Utah in 1982.
and I came from the Bible Belt South. And one of the things that I learned when I came here is, first of all, there's a predominant religion that wasn't like the community that I came in, which we had lots of different religions, very, very, very Christian oriented, but lots of different religions. But what I saw happening, which I really had never understood before, is people going out on missions like Taylor talked about. And what I really saw when they came back is how much they matured. That it was not only a faith building experience, but it was also a character and maturity experience. And we don't see that very many places. And I happened at that point in time, I said, I could be a fan of a national service program tomorrow, because I think it's the opportunity for us not only to give back to our communities and to have an impact, and to do it in a way that we're mobilizing the incredible human resources that we have in this community. When you think about it, it's all about our people, and if everybody was helping other people. That same church also makes us the #1 volunteer state in the nation. So there is a commitment to serving people in our community. But somehow we've not catalyzed that to seeing it as something we all do in Utah. We talk a lot about things related to the Utah way, but we need to make this the Utah way. And it's the Utah way of solving problems at our community level, of helping people one by one by one, doing it in ways that, in fact, we're working in areas that we really care about. It's not some random kind of, you go do this and you go do that, but we find things that we care about, we want to learn about. We see it as a learning opportunity, particularly for our young adults, and a maturing opportunity for them. And that we see it as they can apply that learning in anything they do later in life. So for me, it comes from that Utah experience that I didn't have directly, but my observation of that.
Thanks, Ann. Our next panelist is Marie Grork, who comes to us from the Schultz Family Foundation, but she has an incredible background with many other nonprofit foundations. Marie, why don't you take a stab at this question?
Okay, and no preparation for this question, just so everyone knows.
You can just make it, I mean, you can just make it up. Sorry about that.
So no worries, I can do that. I also did not have an opportunity to serve a mission, but give a shout out to my daughter here, who had that very same experience that you noted in terms of the opportunity to develop and grow through that service experience. But I think all of us have that same opportunity, whether we're able to serve a formal mission in the Utah way or in other venues. Over the last 3 years, I've had the opportunity to serve our local United Way as a tax preparer. It kind of drives my kids and my husband crazy, because that night every week for 3 months, I'm not home to make dinner or walk the dog. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Okay, excellent. So so I've been serving as a United Way tax preparer from January to April, every year, 1 night a week. And when I think about what that service has offered me, obviously, hopefully, I've helped to benefit the families for whom I've helped complete their tax form for, but I've also learned a lot. And every week, I think my colleagues are like, oh, here she comes again. She's going to tell us about what she's learned during her tax service. But oftentimes when you work at a foundation or and sit in rooms like we do here today, we are disconnected from the challenges that families are facing that are raising 3 or 4 kids on $28,000 a year. And when you sit next to somebody and work with them and talk about their finances with them, you have a deeper connection and understanding, and then can bring that back to the work that you do. And that's what service enables us and has enabled me to do, to both learn skills and gain insights that have benefited my work day to day.
Thank you, Marie. Could I get you to do my taxes this year? I actually have
Yeah.
I was actually asked to teach an accounting class a few times in my career, and it's on, and it's made us not be working.
Here, take this one.
All right.
It's all the talk about accounting.
It's
They've
the
just,
accounting.
like, they're
We're trying.
cutting us
That's why we
off.
didn't
Yeah.
want you in the back to actually hear this. No, at the start of every one of my classes, I had to admit I'm the only accounting professor that could never get their taxes right. Even when I was not making any money and had zero, I think I had it returned 5 times. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so Paul.
You didn't have my father.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. That's probably true. Paul Montero is Maryland's first Secretary of Service and Civic Innovation, in charge of volunteerism for an entire state, a remarkable position. Would you take a crack at this question?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me here. To me, service is love in action. And I come to this work as a beneficiary. My parents immigrated to Maryland. My mom from a Pacific island called Palau, my dad from Jamaica. And they met in Silver Spring, Maryland, right over the DC line, working at McDonald's. McLove, 5 kids. But we grew up poor in the suburbs of Maryland. And we were evicted when I was 8. Definitely used food banks powered by Vistas in some cases. So very much seeing the social safety net before I knew the term in action by people that were not related to us, people that didn't know us, didn't look like us, didn't worship like we did. And so trying to find roles to pay that back, because service to me was the love that folks showed that didn't have to. And I think to one of the governor's earlier points, I'm coming to this work from serving 3 presidents and now governor. My immediate last job was at the Justice Department, running the component focused on preventing hate crimes and helping communities that are in danger of falling into violence after a traumatic incident, like a Buffalo Post top shooting. Service is one of the last things left that will bridge the divide. All of the dashboard is flashing yellow or red. I'm a big fan of Robert Putnam, and reading his books as I've sort of come up, looking at Bowling Alone, why are people not joining membership organizations? In 2002, American Grace, the same dynamic with the American Church, and then the 2014 book, Our Kids, looking at the fracturing of community, where we don't know one another. It used to be public education, but not so much anymore. And now you have societies living side by side, totally disconnected, until something, usually something negative, reminds you how connected you are. And so when I got an opportunity to take this role, I had to say yes, because Maryland, not the largest state, but 6 million people, but it's the country in miniature. And the polarization, the separation, the people in their corners is very much happening. And service is one of the last things left where people don't ask where you worship, who you voted for, who you love before we decide to do something good for someone or a group who needs it. So that's what service means to me.
Paul, can I ask you a follow-up question? I want you to put you've got such an amazing background. How would your parents ask that question? Answer the question about service. What would they say? What did service mean to them as they were immigrating to the United States?
That's a good question. I don't know, because and the first panel to me, especially the first generation young leader who was on, that resonated with me, because I could see as I chose roles in public service, they were not doctor, lawyer. My dad's a roofer now. They were not doctor, lawyer, roofer. So as I talked about service and wanting to get in public service, my parents had maybe a cool breeze about it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see it as something that was a vocation. They didn't see it as something that I could sustain myself on. So there was a lot of heartburn.
Yeah.
Where I think maybe if I used a different term, they would have understood it better. But that's part of what we're trying to do in Maryland, is really not have the service conversation divorced from the workforce conversation, divorced from the economic base conversation, divorced from the purpose and civic education piece. So
yeah, and I actually think you're going to bring up a good point that I hope we come back to that theme a little bit later as we hear about each of the initiatives going on in our organizations. This panel is extraordinarily powerful because it's boots on the ground, a ton of just practical knowledge that I kind of want to hope we get front and center. I was asked to take just a minute to talk about service at the University of Utah. We focus on 3 things with our mission: inspiring students, innovating with our research, and serving our communities. And so service is an absolute major pillar of what we do. I will not reiterate many of the reasons for why we serve. but just to put it lightly and bluntly all at the same time, service for us is the way that we build connection in our community, right? It is where we bring 6,000 new students a year, 36,000 in total to campus, and it is the way we get them to know each other. And it creates bonds better than any party I can throw at any moment in the year. We have a service center, Benyon Service Center, that's gone back. It was founded in 1987 by a faculty member that believed wholeheartedly in service. And many thousands of students a year actually serve through that center kind of in, call it unofficial capacities. We've used that center to also leverage what we call a service learning platform, where I'm going to give you some statistics. We have over 184 community engaged learning classes, we called them. 143 different faculty are engaged in service learning. Nearly 5,000 students a year get credit for these classes. There are about 90,000 hours of engagement in all 17 of our colleges and in 55 different departments at the University of Utah. Our current plan right now is actually to give credit for prior service. So whether it be Peace Corps, a church mission, Ann's going to talk about some initiatives we could give credit for prior service for. That is actually in the works of our curriculum development. Hopefully we'll be through actually by the end of the year, so we'll be able to pilot some programs this fall. During the pandemic, our university had a remarkable, I would say, aha moment, in that one of the things that we did to try to bring our students out of the low feelings that they felt during the pandemic was we actually organized what we called the Hope Corps. And it was a service corps that we pointed students towards the most needy parts of our community, whether they be nonprofits that were closing, businesses that needed to switch quickly, if you remember these fantastic terms of PP and whatever, and anyway, all those things that we had to do. But we literally had over 500 to 600 students during that time period serving in our community. And so one of our future plans, now that a lot of the aid that was given to students nationally has gone away, is we will actually be pivoting our Hope Corps and actually joining arms with some legislation that Ann is going to talk about here shortly to actually provide scholarships for students who want to serve. Our universities fundamentally give aid to students in two ways: merit and need. And I would like to pilot with our university and our state an ability to give aid based on service to community. And so we will be actually piloting that. We will be piloting that with over 100 students beginning summer and fall semester as we get some of these curricular redesigns put through. So what I want to do now is allow every one of our panelists to basically talk about some of the incredible initiatives that they have going on in their organizations and plans, and talk about some of their impact. And then we'll hold a little bit of a dialogue around some of those. So let's start at this end, Paul, with you, and you can talk about Maryland and the Maryland model, and we'll work this way.
Great. So excited to talk about the service share option that Governor Moore with the General Assembly launched in April of last year. And it's very much informed by what's come before. We are not trying to build the new silo, the shiny new toy. That would be a waste of time and effort. We're trying to build a new stream of service that leverages existing ones. We inherit the State Service Commission in Maryland, all the great AmeriCorps programming happening in Maryland. We have to grow together. The challenges we're trying to deal with will require all of these streams, not competing with one another. So the Service Share Option is a program for individuals who've graduated high school in the last 3 years, whether through GED, Certificate of Completion for those with disabilities, or traditional diploma. So graduation plus 3 years. There's so many, about 15,000, that graduate every year without a plan. They don't report job, military, or higher education. What do? At best, employed somewhere, maybe underemployed on their mom's couch. At worst, it gets pretty bad. And so getting this latent human talent into a program that lets them choose where they serve. Gen Z likes choices. I call it an a la carte generation. The moment we tell them what they're going to do, that's not going to go well. So we're in a pilot year now you're paid at least the state minimum wage of $15 an hour. Many employers are paying more. You can serve in a nonprofit, you can serve in a for-profit, you can serve in a public agency, a chamber of commerce, what have you. We want them to have a wide range of places one could serve. And we're expanding the aperture of service, because sometimes I get the question of how is it serving at a for-profit? But if you've looked at our revenue projections in the state, if you've looked at the commercial tax base in the state, it is in our interest to promote the next generation of entrepreneurs who stay in the state and create companies, innovate products, and create jobs and other employment for others. So they're paired with a mentor on site, week to week, day to day. How's it going? Is this what you want to do? Because we already know from the initial assessment that got you here, you said you want to be a doctor. We put you in a health environment. After 3 weeks, you may realize, I do not want to be a doctor. It's like my friends in law school who you could tell, like, you're here because you like Matlock, not because, it's dawning on you, you just signed up for 3 years of this. So avoiding that situation, it's sort of like, if you realize a month in, this is not what I thought it was, that's a win, because we might have saved you years of tuition and under just not being enthused about what you signed up to do. And so many times when we introduce this program to adults and describing it to a person, they say, this is not the job I have in this moment is not the job I thought I would have coming out of high school, but I had this opportunity, which led to this other thing, which led to a mentor putting me onto this other thing. Even Major General Heck talked about his very, non-linear career paths. So we have them for about a year, consistent professional development, average of 10 hours a week, because a year goes fast. We bring them together by region monthly, so they get to know others serving in the program. The point is to know not only the hard and soft skills of whatever service assignment you have, but to network with your peers and your mentor, and to leave our program with a couple of caring, responsible adults that you didn't have before to look at your resume, to help you navigate next steps in life. If you successfully complete, there's a $6,000 completion award that can be used as a direct payment toward tuition. Or for those that say, I found a job I love, I found a career I want to do, or continued service, you can take it as a cash out. Get your first apartment, get your used car, start your life. But at least you're not stuck in that place of underemployment on your mom's couch, thinking about things but not doing anything about it. And there's a third-party evaluation built into this, because this is a significant investment of taxpayer money. So we need to look at outcomes. What happens to the organizations that these folks are serving in, and what happens to the participants? Not just a year out, but 2 years out, 3 years out. But I'm optimistic as we go. There's so much demand on the participant side and the employer side based on our pilot so far. And we hope that private dollars come to the table to help us grow the program beyond the initial pilot years.
Paul, there is so much to like about that program. Amazing. I'll just make a little comment. Maybe you two also have some observations, but first off, one of the biggest challenges we have in higher ed is trying to find the motivation, right, for a student. Where do you want to go? We need to get them through. We want to make decisions quick. This service opportunity is like an answer to that, right? You get somebody who can, it's as important to say no to something as it is to say yes early on, right? It's stunning. One quick follow-up question. What are your expectations for results? If you think about measures, could you give us a little hint on where you're hoping?
I think in one word, it's conversion.
Yeah.
We basically repurposed the Department of Labor platform as our platform, because we needed a one-stop shop too, not just to ascertain what you wanted or you think you want to do, but to track progress toward goals over the term. Because while we have you, we certainly want you to earn some funds, get some hard and soft skills. And I'm pleased to say most of our members are actually in Department of Labor recognized apprenticeship tracks now, because this counts as the on-the-job training to give them credentials. So they're walking out with things that make them more competitive. Because to your question, conversion, so what are you doing now? And I can't hear, well, I'm thinking about this, or no, I need to know, where are you enrolled in a college? Where are you working? Where are you serving? In what branch of the military? Because we need to help you, if anything, get unstuck from the in-between place you were in.
Yeah.
And not to say you're going to do whatever that next thing is for the rest of your life, but you're in a place, you made an informed decision about it. You enrolled now knowing I'm going to major in this, as opposed to my parents told me I'm going to do this. And so successful conversion into a field that aligns with your interests, where you find a sense of purpose, and where you can have an ability to sustain yourself. We don't want to put people on a track to other minimum wage professions.
Yeah.
That's not helpful either.
Fantastic.
can I
Yeah.
ask a follow-up?
Yeah, I would love. Yeah.
So tell us what you've learned in this
I've
experience.
now lost control of the panel. Go ahead. You go. It's all right. It's exactly what I wanted.
So tell us what you have learned that we should learn from you. In other words, what are the challenges in starting it? I really like the fact that you're integrating and pulling different programs together. You're not trying to create another one. You're trying to make it very focused on helping students, young adults have experiences, et cetera. But what have you learned in this journey to starting this program that would be helpful for those who follow you?
I think one, it's sort of recognizing the state of the state in the sense of we had to create a new agency through other state agencies, through state processes, and not seamless. I'll say that. And so that complicates things, but sort of finding workarounds as best one can. I do think in terms of recruitment, on the participant side, we were off cycle in that we didn't exist until May. We didn't start recruiting until June. By then, seniors, they've walked, and trying to reach them at the summer after they graduated is not the easiest thing to do. So being in alignment with the academic calendar, both in terms of recruitment, but also offboarding, because if someone ends our program and says, I want to go to higher ed, we don't want to step on orientation and move in and all that. And I think thirdly, I mean, you have the best, the governor's buy-in. Like we thought we were going to go to market to recruit 50 employers for a core of about 200 people, because we're assigning people to serve in cohorts. We don't want people serving alone, because part of the stickiness, we stole a page from the Posse Foundation of, you serve alone, the moment you have 2 bad weeks, you're a flight risk, but you serve together. But we had over 100 employers come to the table because the governor was out there telling businesses and employers, I want you in this program. And so you have the buy-in of the governor, obviously a senior leader in the legislature. I think that buy-in is key to helping. So those are a couple reflections.
That's good. Thank you.
Marie, let's turn to you. You've got an incredible view of the national landscape for programs, because I'm sure they're coming to you all the time for a little bit of funding help.
Yeah.
So give us your perspective.
So a little bit of background. I am at the Schultz Family Foundation. We're based in Seattle, Washington. And our mission is creating opportunity accessible to all. And when COVID hit, we saw national service as an opportunity maybe for young people to, so that they would have an on-ramp, something to do valuable during the time when their lives were so disrupted during COVID. And we also saw it as a way through the national service to address food insecurity. So the idea was, how do we help deploy young people, put them in food banks, and deliver food to those who need it? What we found at the end of the year, I think, is a little bit similar to what Paul just mentioned in Maryland. Two things. I think first is, yes, pay attention to the calendar. That matters. And oftentimes we're on our own schedules, and the young people's schedule actually matters more than ours. But the second is about intentionality. We can't just say, hey, yeah, I bet it's going to be good for young people, and for it to be good for young people, we need to be intentional about it. And to be very honest, in that first year, we put in some professional development programs, but we were not intentional about what we wanted young people to gain from that year in a way that felt valuable to young people. I think earlier today on the first panel, we heard about service being potentially an accelerant to career and to personal development. But for that to happen, we have to be purposeful in our design. And so what we have worked on since that time is we actually launched a national service challenge based on the things that we learned, things that went well and things that didn't go well. And we asked other states to join us and say, are you interested in joining with us to create national service opportunities that are not just benefiting community, which is important, but are very intentional on how they're benefiting the young people that serve, so that we can ensure after a year of service that there has been progress, not only in their hard skill development, in their career development, but in something that Paul just mentioned, which I think is often thought of as meaning making, purpose, and belonging. And oftentimes, for those of us who are interested in creating opportunity, we focus a lot just on skill development. But it's this alchemy of skills plus meaning making, purpose, and belonging that enable young people to convert, to grow, and to leave their year of service in a way that's better for them, where they're able to have be on a career path, not just a job path, not just churning in minimum wage work, but on a career path that means something to them and to their community. And so a couple of examples I just want to throw out, in addition to the work that Maryland is doing, is Colorado. Colorado has the first registered apprenticeship for those in service around public health. And so young people who are serving in Colorado are earning a credential that enables them to have a great job afterwards. Minnesota, the same. You can earn a credential as a peer support specialist and go on to a great career afterwards. And so we see states around the country joining in this effort. We actually have a partnership now with the National Governors Association, where we had 21 states apply to say we want to be part of a cohort that is trying to figure out how we can combine workforce development and national service. And the last thing I'll mention on this point is the importance of thinking about skill building opportunities. Work is changing. The nature of work is changing. I don't think anyone has mentioned the term AI yet today, but it's coming. It's here with us. Young people already know everything about, a lot about AI. They're using it perhaps maybe to write their papers. They know a lot more than many of us do. And so not only are young people eager for new skill building opportunities, but our nonprofits and our public sector agencies, they need young people in those roles to teach them how to advance their organizations in this near future.
Thank you, Marie. And thanks for your support to so many people.
Yes.
Anne, let's turn to you. Anne is one of our incredible legislative leaders who's at the forefront of thinking about service. And I would like to think it's because she comes from the academic sector, just so you know.
Well, all the credit for this actually goes to Governor Cox and to Lieutenant Governor Henderson. We actually had a meeting with some leadership, both a legislative leadership, which they said, we'd really like to start doing some programs that engage our young people in service. And I think earlier today, you heard Lieutenant Governor talk about how do we get high school students involved in service. And there's a pilot that's been developed with some very willing school districts and charter schools who want to engage in this work and see how do we do this in a way that provides not only an opportunity for students to give back and to learn about service, but also to see it as a learning and development experience for them. And I am with you that it also should be a kind of a career development experience for young people. This is something that doesn't have to be, oftentimes this is about service, or this is about civic engagement, or this is about learning. This can be about all of these things that allows us to be able to develop as professionals and career people and very early stages in our careers. And I think we need to think about it in that way. So, but the credit goes to our governor and lieutenant governor. So we are really working on two things. One, Lieutenant Governor has been leading an effort to find a way to do this in our high schools, to figure out how we do it in the right way. Before you try to do it across the entire state, what do you learn from doing some pilots with some willing partners in this process? And we hope to get some funding to help them with the coordination elements of that during the legislative session and be able to move that forward. And then we think about our young adults coming out of high school, or maybe a year or two or three. How do we help them think about engaging early? It's very easy as a young person to worry about either I've got to go to work or I've got to go to school. And the reality is there are developmental experiences that I think can integrate both of those things and help them better prepare. Whether they're, I think we're trying not to do this, that You just have to be somebody who is not working at all, and we put you in this service role. But we are also trying to incorporate it in such a way that college students could do this, and maybe they're doing the service half-time and they're taking still a part-time work schedule, university schedule. So it allows them to think about their life in multiple dimensions. And one of the things we find in Utah is, at least and I think probably is true for many of our universities, is 50% of our students are working full or part-time. 80% of them are working at least part-time, and they work to help go to school. So how do we think through that in a way that says, let's take a student, let's give them some experiences that will really help the communities in which they're living. It will help them to gain the skills that they need as they kind of become members of a community and members of an organization and members of a career in the future. And how do we help them also support them in continuing their college or university education in whatever way, whether going forward? And so the design of this program is really built around that. It's built around AmeriCorps. It's built around the Maryland model. That's why I was really interested in continuing to learn from the Maryland model. What we're hopeful that we'll be able to do is to make this, starting with a pilot project as well at the young adult level, have students have individual organizations who have a need and the opportunity to provide these real service opportunities. And what I say, is it okay for the accounting student to do this, particularly for a nonprofit?
Totally. Just don't let them do taxes.
But I mean, we think about our nonprofits, even if we focus it initially on a lot of the nonprofit work that we have in this community, the reality is a nonprofit has lots of varieties of skills that you have to learn in order to be able to run a nonprofit. So you can not only think about that nonprofit and the service that they provide, but also what it takes to keep that entity going. So it's an opportunity in this case to say, we want to provide service fellowships. That's very intentional language. Many of you know that in a lot of our college programs, we talk about fellowships, and we talk about that as something that helps build that, span the boundary between university traditional classes and going out into the career and professional world. Well, that's what we hope that we can do with this, that we're doing boundary spanning that allows us to continue to have those university experiences, support them being able to get a college education, and to do it in such a way that it expands their experience base, but allows them to go on and develop skills individually, as well as being able to have the funding and the support to help them pursue that. So we're also trying to thread this in the same way that let's don't recreate programs. We've tried to bring people together and say, let's do it in such a way that we're combining our efforts, making it flexible enough for different models, engaging with AmeriCorps and other programs that we have. So we are not duplicating efforts, but we're trying to provide some synergy to those efforts. And again, we want to be looking at outcomes as well. So thank you.
Great program. We're nearing the end of our time, and so I want to ask a final kind of rapid fire question of each of our panelists. Give me the biggest headwind that you have for your program, and if you were to wave your magic wand, what would you wave to clear that headwind and make you successful? I'll start with anyone that's ready to answer this question. Okay, go ahead.
Funding. And sorry.
And funding.
Funding is always there. That's critical. And making sure that we can really have a tight approach to being able to demonstrate outcomes. So it's not only funding of the pilot project, but using the pilot project, demonstrate outcomes allows you to get funding later. So that's one. I think that's extremely critical. The second is am going to say to college and university people here, thinking through how you in fact make this learning outside the classroom, and that students can actually earn credit for learning outside the classroom. We have to expand our boundaries. Learning doesn't just happen in classroom facilities, it happens in lots of different environments, and we need to find ways to recognize that and again bring the synergy to the process.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
So when I think about even just folks in this room, things we've heard today, for national service and the things we've talked about today to be successful, it's a multi-sector approach. We have been working for the last year on putting together the pieces for a youth mental health core, which we expect to launch later this spring. Hopefully there'll be an iteration here in Utah. But if you think about a youth mental health core, that involves nonprofits, for-profits, various parts of the state government, public health, service, as well as the federal government and universities. How do we put all of this together in a way that we're actually able to address the youth mental health crisis in some meaningful way and give the young people who are serving to do that work an opportunity to get on a career path? And that involves lots of people working really well together in a way that we're not used to. Oftentimes we're just much more comfortable in the silos and sectors in which we work. And so I think accomplishing many of the things we've talked about today is really going to be about rolling up our sleeves and thinking about how we can work together in different ways to accomplish new outcomes.
Yeah, I think for us, it's almost like David and Goliath, and before David goes out to see Goliath, like they try to give him someone else's armor, and he's like, no, it doesn't fit me. I'm good with the sling, and I'm going to go out and do. And that was it's the tailoring for us, because young people are individual, and the moment we try to give them a one-size-fits-all thing, they chafe. It doesn't fit me, and the tailoring is important because we have this design challenge of positioning this as a public good. I don't want all valedictorians in this program, because then we become the new elite program and folks say, well, that's not for me. I'm not going to apply to that. And I don't want folks who, barely made it out, because then the program takes on a reputation where folks opt out. We're trying to correct for, even if you went to the same high school, you don't know each other because you were in APIB and I was in general population. So this is maybe the last stop where we could do something together before you go off to great things and I go off to great things. We have this year together, but the permutations of what does it look like for someone serving in a for-profit versus a unionized environment versus a public agency versus a nonprofit. It's a design challenge. We're working through it, but all of that is going to take time to figure out so that we can give people a robust menu of choose your own adventure, but we have to figure the logistics out on the tailoring.
Thank you very much. I hope you'll just join me in thanking this panel today. You were wonderful. And Anne, I hope you get your funding. Marie, I hope we can break down those walls, and Paul will tailor it exactly to what you want. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I promise, let's steal this one. I promise we are close. You've made it through the gauntlet. I know it's been a long day. I hope it's been a day with you. I promise I will be short. And then before the chaos starts, there's no way we're getting out of here without doing a service project. Okay, so it's going to be fun. We'll introduce it here, and then we'll go into the other room to do it. It will be short, but it will be worth it. Good things are happening here. Let me just wrap up if I can. This is. It's what's today, January 8th. And I started the year by telling my team, Lieutenant Governor and I had this conversation, this is going to be the best year ever. I have to keep telling myself that. Because if you turn on the news, if you look at social media right now, there's this sense of foreboding, I think, maybe that's kind of this pall that's kind of settling over us. We know we're headed into what's likely to be the next most divisive election of our lifetimes, right? There's terrible things happening in the Middle East. Of course, Ukraine now, we're approaching 2 years. There is darkness out there. There's no question. And a lot of us have not been looking forward to 2024. I have to run for re-election again. running for election is the worst. Let me just say, especially in this environment. And so it's really easy. It's really easy to get pessimistic. It's really easy to get down on ourselves and our country and look at all the bad things that are happening. I hope today that that we have seen hope, that there is good out there, that we still are better. There is an exhaustive majority that cares about this. I keep thinking, and I share it all the time, about why this matters, and the words of John Adams, who said that without the political virtues of humility, patience, and moderation, we are all ravenous political beasts. And I think, how do you get those virtues of humility, patience, and moderation? And I think we get them through service. I think this is one of the forms in which we can find those political virtues. I will say there is just, and we didn't have time for one more panel, but if I did, there is one group that we did not have here today, and those are our seniors. And I know Major General Heck mentioned this, a couple of others mentioned it. I don't want to forget them when we talk about the work of depolarizing and we talk about the work of serving. If you look at statistics, it tends to be the older generation that is getting the most polarized, that is most susceptible to misinformation, that spends the most time. We're talking about young people spending time on their parents' couch, and we do worry about them. I'm also worried about another generation spending time on their own couches too much, and falling prey to whatever Fox News or MSNBC tells them that night that is not true about us, and not true especially about those people that are destroying our country. You can't love America if you hate half of Americans. And so we have this opportunity to serve and give back, and we want to include them. I'll just conclude, if I might, by quoting the poet Aeschylus. I just want to thank all of you who are working together to tame the savageness of men, and making gentle the life of this world. We're proud to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Now, do not leave. Abby's going to come up and tell you about our service project.
Thank you. You knew you weren't getting out of here without working. When I get a room full of people, I'm going to put you to work. So we're really excited about this service project and the people that it represents and the folks that are here to talk to us about it. I also want to tell you that because you're here, and we were going to do this in the other room, but being a mom and being a former teacher, I know I have a captive audience and may not get you back to this kind of attention. So we're going to do this right in this room. So thanks for allowing me to call an audible. Our service project today is supporting the University of Utah's integrated health clinic at West High School. West High School is a high school here just a few blocks away that serves both mental health and physical health of our state's high school students. We're first going to hear from Jamie Larson, who is the CEO and founder of Generous, who we met at our NGA convening in New Hampshire. And they partner with nonprofits to create team-building, social impact volunteering events for public sector and corporate teams. So Generous has kindly sponsored the reception and the service project. And then following Jamie, we will hear from Dr. Jeff Robinson,